The following is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network.
構成藤田 Listening Keeping Strong Style.
Yo, this is Rich Latta from One Nation Radio. This is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network. We present to you the Ace of Podcasts, keeping it strong style. Let's go. It's the Ace of Podcasts, keeping it strong style. Covering New Japan, they ready to hold it down. Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Josh. Come and hit a job out in Barrio the Frogs. From the Tokyo Dome over to the G1. Social Suplex is the network where we can get it done. I'ma chill and let them have it, cause this is just an intro. Keeping the strong style, 6 stars from the get-go, boy. Yeah, from Tampa Bay to the Tokyo Dome, this is Keeping It Strong Style with your hosts, Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Joshua Smith. And thank you for listening.
Welcome to Keeping It Strong Style, the Ace of Podcasts on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. Jeremy Donovan here with the young boy Josh Smith. On today's show, we'll review Sakura Genesis and cover all this news in the world of New Japan Pro Wrestling. Please support our show by subscribing and following the Social Suplex Podcast Network and Keeping It Strong Style on the podcast app of your choice and leaving a rating and review. You can also get all the network's podcasts over at socialsuplex.com along with the Social Suplex newsletter. If you enjoy this podcast, please consider making a one-time or monthly donation by visiting socialsuplex.com/donate and click on the donate button under the Keeping It Strong Style logo. And we are streaming live right now on patreon.com/KI Strong Style. If you want to watch our show live or listen without ads, you can sign up at patreon.com/KI Strong Style. Young boy, how was your Easter?
You know, we don't really celebrate this Easter. My wife and her family, they grew up Greek Orthodox, so they call this White Easter, even though I consider it the real Easter. Which, you know, my wife wanted me to order some dinner yesterday, and she was like, yeah, I got this gift card from work for DoorDash. How about you use that? And I was like, sure. Which chain restaurant do you want to order from? She's like, oh, I was thinking we could have this, or this. And I'm like, you know, it's Easter, right? She's like, it's fake Easter. And I'm like, it's not fake to all the people that are off.
Right.
Not working. And I was like, you know, the Easter that you got coming up in next week, shit's going to be open. I'm just saying.
Not a draw.
But yeah. But no, I actually enjoy Greek Easter because Greek food is some of my favorite. And as you know, Jeremy, we are right near Tarpon Springs, which has some of the best Greek food in the entire world, literally. So
yeah, that's great.
Looking forward to that. I don't know if you guys did anything to celebrate the resurrection.
Yeah, well, it's my first Sunday back at church since Jones has been born. So I was up in the media booth running the lyrics for both services. And then we took Jones out on his first adventure outside of a doctor's appointment, went over to Jen's parents' house and had a Easter meal there and hung out.
Nice, man. Well, it sounds like a nice little Sunday, you know?
Yeah, it was good.
Did you ever see Old School when he's like, they got Will Ferrell's character at the party and they're like, yo, you gonna hit this beer bong, bro? And he's like, I don't know. I don't really think I should. He's like, you know, I gotta stay sober. I got stuff to do tomorrow. They're like, what do you got to do tomorrow? And he's like, I don't know. You know, we might hit up Bed Bath and Beyond. He's like, we might hit up Lowe's. I don't know. I don't know if we'll have enough time, but he's like, we got a nice little Sunday planned.
And I haven't seen that movie in a while. I need to rewatch it.
I'm like, bro, are you fucking serious? Hit this beer bong, bro. And he's like, all right, I'll just hit one, just one. And then after he does it, he's like, it's so good. It's so good when it hits your lips. It's so good. Oh, man.
Well, we got a lot of New Japan stuff to jump into, concluding.
I know we do. I just have a couple quick business items, nothing major, but one, Tanahashi Ace of the Universe 2015 in the can. So that will be coming out this week. Obviously, I'm going to have to send that over to you for editing.
Yeah. Why don't you just transfer it after you're done record?
What do you mean?
Like, why don't you just put the audio in there when you're done after you finish recording it?
Because I just recorded it.
Oh, just before we got on?
Not just before we got on, but like earlier, like today. So it's ready to go, but I have to like upload it. I'm a busy man, bro. I had a lot of stuff going on this week. So that will be out, and 2016 is just about ready to go. So I think this weekend I'll be able to knock that out. So for Patreon subscribers, look forward to that. One other quick thing. So me and Jeremy, we've been doing match of the month, wrestler of the month, going back, since late, what was it?
November 2017.
2017. And at various times we've like compiled that information and then lost track of it. Same thing with our recommended matches of the month in the past. I know that whole thing's kind of been on hold for a while. We might want to get back around to that, but I was able to this past week go through all of the audio files over the past 8-9 years, whatever it is. I've tracked all that information down and compiled it. So we have it in a full list, and we're going to be able to make that available. It's not available just yet, but we will be making that available probably, I believe, on the Patreon as well as maybe the Social Suplex website. So keep an eye out for that. Really good recommendations, both for classic New Japan as well as, excursion matches that have happened in the past couple of years. And you'll be able to use that as like a searchable database. So if you're ever at a point where you're like, hey, I want to watch a Hiromu match, what did these guys recommend? You could probably just search that name and then find a whole laundry list of really good matches that we've reviewed. You can also see the episodes where they've been recommended and maybe go back and check out the audio of when we review those matches and see if it's worth your time. So, but that's pretty much just the housekeeping stuff. Get that out of the way. I know we got a lot to talk about here.
Yeah, let's jump in. We got to conclude the Sakura Genesis tour, and there were a ton of announcements for the Wrestling Don Taku tour as well. So let's jump right into it. So we have night 4 of the road to Sakura Genesis, which was the Junior Genesis show from Korakuen Hall with a reported attendance of 1,476. We had no guardrails for the show. So what they've been doing for a lot of these junior, highlighted shows, they treat it like a Super Juniors tour where they get rid of the barricade so these guys can fly, and you definitely need that when Robbie X is on the card. So they clear the guardrails out there. I was really perplexed. I was like, why the fuck aren't there guardrails in Korakuen tonight? I was like, did they was there an accident on the road and the guardrails were on a trailer that just didn't make it to the building in time? Like, it totally went over my head until literally, because they didn't really mention it on commentary, and then we got to the junior matches and I'm like, oh, that's why. Yeah. So we had a show opened up. We had Shota Umino and Tiger Mask defeating Kushida and Masatora Yasuda 5 minutes and 34 seconds. Umino sending a message to Konosuke Takeshita by hitting the Raging Fire on Yasuda to get the win.
Yeah, good little opener. Obviously, Kushida has been working with the juniors all throughout this tour, so that's kind of going to continue here. Also, it continued well into Ryogoku. But Umino making a huge message here. I think the big news coming out of this match, post-match, was Tiger Mask doing an impromptu promo, grabbing the mic, and basically saying that he started his career in Korakuen, and his retirement date has been set. It's going to be July 7th in Korakuen Hall. And, much to the surprise of the audience. So that looks like it's set. And then, Shota Umino, the funny thing here is like he's glad handing, kissing babies, making the rounds. It looks like he's going to go to the back. Man just turns right back around, puts a shirt on, sits down at Japanese commentary because he wanted to get eyes on Takeshita, whose match was right after that one.
Yeah, I really like that. I know the tradition is to kind of do preview tags, and Takeshita, sometimes he'll bring Rocky, but he doesn't really have a unit. But I do like the trope of, all right, these two guys are about to face each other. have them face like a young lion or be in some kind of other tags to where they can kind of like scout each other. So it's not always the preview tag, which I mean, those are great too, but I think it's kind of cool to mix it up a little bit and kind of have some one-upsmanship when these guys are facing young lions.
Well, I think I agree with you there. I like the variety. I also think that kind of lends itself to some of the backstage comments that Shota Umino's been making, where he's been pretty critical of Takeshita's, contract status, the fact that he's been working abroad and isn't able to make all of the tour dates and work those, Road 2 shows. And the reason I'm saying that is because, like, had he been on the whole tour, perhaps there would have been a series of preview tag matches, but instead, even though I think for like the past 2 or 3 weeks, Takeshita's been in Japan, he's been splitting his time between DDT and like other, small independent groups. So he hasn't been on all of the Road 2s. And that's been one of the big criticisms Umino's had, which probably is a reason why they haven't done a lengthy series of, preview Road 2 tags.
Yeah. And one last thing here on Kushida. I think I have figured out why he is not, rocking the Contra shirt or being more heelish. So,
it hasn't aired yet.
Right. So MLW, like, they haven't aired anything at all this year. They're 4 months behind. They've been doing shows, they've been taping, but they have an ad on their site for a video editor, and I guess they really don't have one because, they haven't released anything they've released this year. So only the live attendants saw Kushida join Contra, but the world has not seen it yet.
I listened to the Flagship earlier today, been a little behind on my podcast, and I those guys cover MLW pretty extensively and, have been doing that for a while. And they talked about this exact issue, and I was not aware of it. And then they said on the website, not only does it say that you have to have knowledge of the product, and not only do you have to have, good editing skills, but you also have to have extensive history editing wrestling shows and helping, putting them together for production. And it's like, well, the first 2, you can find someone to do that shit. But like the third part, they have to have, a lengthy resume, editing wrestling shows. There's only a handful of people on the earth that fit that criteria. Yeah. So they're going to probably need to like lower that expectation, because I mean, I know Rich is in the comments right now. Rich is an incredible video editor. He could probably put together MLW show for them. Emily could do that. You might be able to do that shit, Jeremy.
Yeah, I mean, I've had some video editing experience before.
So I do think it's funny that like you have to have put together a wrestling show before. It's like, who the fuck are you guys going to be able to hire? Who are you going to be able to afford to pay to do this shit? Like, yeah. So well, it is really funny that hasn't made tape yet.
The Road Dogg is, no longer with the Fed. I wonder if he has any video editing experience.
Rich in the comments, Shinihan is saved from them Yota Tsuji rules. May the white man ride again. All workers be ready to challenge for the IWGP. All workers matter.
No, I never thought I'd hear Rich say that. We'll also jump to the next match. Like we mentioned, Umino's on commentary, and he was watching Konosuke Takeshita defeating Tetsuya Matsumoto with 6 minutes and 35 seconds. Beats him with the Blue Thunder Bomb. And I love this when guys use a kind of a secondary high impact move that they wouldn't normally win in a match against a established guy, but it was good enough to beat a young lion here.
Yeah, and we've been high on Matsumoto. One little small wrinkle I noticed in his game, he was able to hit, I don't even know exactly what to call it. I'm just going to call it an inverted backdrop slam, basically like where he held the guy up similarly to like a Black Mephisto position and then just fell straight back with Takeshita. That's not the sort of move that you typically see from a young lion, Yeah. But I thought that was a little cool moral victory that he was able to hit something a little unique there on Takeshita. But this was pretty much just Takeshita, showcase. And then, backstage or post-match, Takeshita and Umino, they face off in the ring. And we're all set for the TV title match, 2 days following this.
Yeah. Then following that, we had Umura Taichi and El Desperado defeating Togi Makabe, Tomoka Hanma, and Master Wato. 9 minutes, 15 seconds. Taichi with a nasty sunset flip cradle on Hanma. Yeah, he had stayed there a little bit long. Gave him the little teabag special there.
Yeah, he could have let go of that hold at any time, and he made sure to add insult to injury and hold on to that for an extended length to let everybody know, like, I pinned this man. This shit's done.
Yeah.
I never know what to call that move because I know it's a cradle. It's the same cradle that like Cody beat Aldis with and Bulldog beat Brett with, but I try to look up the name of it. I don't know if anyone knows the official name of that move. I know Okada also pinned Ospreay with that in the in their fourth match, but Taichi making good use of it here.
Yeah, and this was a little preview for Yuya, Despi, and Taichi taking on United Empire at Sakura Genesis. And you also have the Makabe count here, so Makabe taking one bump in this match.
One big solid bump from Makabe.
That's because that man was getting ready for a real big bump the next night.
Hanma hit 2 Kokeshis out of 4, so the Kokeshi count continues. One of the interesting things here, I don't know if it's probably not going to lead to anything, or if it does, it'll be later on, but Yuya Makabe superheated exchanges post-match. They had a big pull apart, and then backstage they had a continuation of that where they were talking shit, and Makabe basically telling Yuya he's never done anything in this company, he's never won shit, and Yuya saying like, you used to be IWGP level, and that he could beat him any time of the of the week. So a lot of kind of heated stuff going on between them. Desperado for some reason is wanting to fight Ishii still, even though he's on the outs. I don't remember him making a specific challenge, but basically saying he hasn't forgotten his challenge to Ishii, so he's got his sights set there. But the most interesting thing coming out of all this is how vocal Taichi has been over the past few weeks, and especially here, about AEW and the way they're treating outsiders that have left the company and then returned, and how those kinds of guys really aren't needed because they're getting the red carpet treatment, but guys like him and the rest of Hantai, they're making the towns every single night. They're the ones who are keeping the company afloat. And it's kind of bullshit that this guy's being treated like a hero when really he's an outsider. So kind of just building up some of the animosity for that upcoming match between them.
Yeah, because they were a focus in that 6-man. A lot of great sequences, and we'll get to that. But yeah, very interesting. Yeah, Taichi really tearing down Ospreay and all these guys, jumping to AEW. It felt very much the vibes of, WWE, where all the full-timers were, mad that the part-timers were coming in. It's like, yeah, we don't need, Batista to come back. We don't need Undertaker. It was kind of that whole era where the main eventers were kind of getting upstaged by the part-timer guys.
And I think a lot of that has to do probably with like money, because it's like these guys are getting paid less. There's a reason people are jumping, and the guys that are still around, are having to hold on to the idea of like, hey, this is our passion. We're trying to make this place better. And it's really convenient that when business is back up following 1-4 Dome, that you guys all of a sudden want to start showing up on the big houses. All of a sudden you want to start working the, Ryogoku and shit like that. So
yeah,
pretty interesting.
Yeah. So then following that, we had a preview here for the never openweight 6-man title match that would happen at Sakura Genesis with the House of Torture team of Chase Owens, Don Fale, Ren Narita, and Yoshinobu Kanemaru, and Yujiro Takahashi. They defeated the team of Bishamon, Aaron Wolf, Bolton Oleg, and Toru Yano, with Fale getting the big elbow drop on Yano. Of course, we had some hot slop shenanigans here with the whiskey bottle leading to Fale get the win, and lots of interactions here with Fale and Aaron Wolf, which we know that they are now going to have a singles match coming up.
I guess the official tag team name for the Never 6-Man champions is Bishamonten. I don't think that's a great name. I understand sometimes it works when you just kind of mishmash people's names together to create that team name, but with an imposing looking team the way they are, they needed to have, I think it would have been imperative for them to have like a badass unit name. They don't have one. And that's one of the shortcomings of the Never Six Mans is like very rarely when teams, are formed, do they create a name for that trio. And I think that that's something that they should focus on. Like, I wish that when we talk about how great Okada, Tanahashi, and Ishii were, we wouldn't say Chaos and Tanahashi. Like we could actually have a name for that shit,
Yeah.
But I guess Bishop Montan's better than nothing, but it's not that much better than just saying their names.
Right. Let's go back to drawing board on that one, Gato. So following that, we had TMDK, Hartley Jackson, Roy Oiwa, and Zack Sabre Jr. defeating the Unbound Company team of the Knockout Brothers and Gato, with Big Jag hitting the Jagged Edge on Gato. So this was a preview for the tag team title match.
I thought the funniest part about this match in general was just Geto being in there alone with Hartley and literally not being able to physically do anything with the man whatsoever.
I popped. He's trying to get the Gato clutch on him. He's like trying to push his head down. And
he couldn't do anything with the man. Rich said it. Rich says, "Jagged Edge, let's get married."
So following that, we had United Empire's Callum Newman, Jake Lee, and Zane J defeating the Unbound Company team of Daiki Nagai, Shingo Takagi, and Yota Tsuji, with Callum Newman hitting the Excalibur on Nagai to get the win for his team. We had Zane J. We talked about it last week. He brought the CD out that said Zane's music. Well, apparently it got to the sound guy, and we heard Zane's music. It was from some crunk. He was out there, bobbing his head like this.
I forget the name of the individual or the pseudonym, but there's someone that's been making a lot of the theme songs for New Japan. I don't know if that's an individual. I've heard some people say it's actually...
There's like Kubricks that like...
Yeah, Kubricks, that's what it is.
Yeah, that made the Bullet Club theme, that made Callum's theme.
I'm wondering if that's a real individual or if I've heard speculation that that's just a name that Rocky goes under and he's actually making the music. I don't know. I've also heard speculation about, and this is just speculation, I'm not saying it's true, I don't know, but I've heard some people say that they suspect that the news, not the Zane J, but the Callum Newman music might be AI related. And I don't have a keen enough ear to catch if that is actually the case. I don't mean to like besmirch Kubricks if that's the individual who made it, because maybe they're not using AI. But I am wondering if that is starting to like permeate into the into New Japan, because it's pretty much everywhere else at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Callum theme's fire, so.
I could tell you like it more than maybe perhaps me and Emily did when we had to discuss it the other week.
Yeah, and,
you're probably listening to the show being like, man, fuck y'all, that shit is.
Bro, I got that on repeat right now. It's fire. Last week you were talking about Zane J maybe appropriating a little bit, but he's definitely leaning into it.
Now, one thing that was interesting going into this match all week on the non-televised Road 2s, but the reason we know about it is because it kept popping up on social media, is Shingo post-match commenting during every Unbound Company multi-man tag team victory about how he has his sights set on the IWGP, and he was looking to challenge Tsuji, even though they're interfactionary. And we've seen stuff like that in the past with, like, obviously it's not LIJ, but it kind of is just like an extension of LIJ-ism. But that sort of is kind of continuing here in this match, and might have been a little bit of a tip off or clue as to what was going to happen 2 nights, later.
Yeah.
But at the time I was like, what's happening here? Like, why is Shingo, trying to go after his boy, like, let it breathe. He just got the belt.
Yeah, it's funny because, like, I know you mentioned that last week, but then the more I thought about it, and then I watched this match, and, like, I felt like Callum just looked like a stud in this match. I'm like, this man looks like he's about to win the belt. And then all the Shingo comments, I'm like, dude, Shingo would be a great first challenger for him. And that's when I put that tweet out. I'm like, yeah, I'm starting to think that, big Newman's about to win this thing.
Start rethinking your choices. Yeah, 5 minutes and 20 seconds. This was a sprint. Everybody got their shit in. Newman looked great. And yeah, speaking of guys winning with their secondary finisher, he won it with his thirdary finisher, the Excalibur. That's fallen down the pecking order after the Princess Curse at this point, and it's still enough to get a jag like Daiki Nagai out of here.
Yeah, and
a bum.
Yeah, post match he put the belt on his shoulder, said he's carrying the whole damn company. He's also carrying all of British wrestling right now too. So great promo post match there. And we had a question here from Navith relating to one of Callum's partner here, Jake Lee. He says, why is Jake Lee like this? Can someone give him a talk or something? So we had Jake Lee, every appearance he's been upping the face paint. Kind of started out with kind of a small little thing around the eye, and now he has a full-on white face paint. Look, he looks kind of like Crow or Sting. I don't know what to make of it.
He's a clown, bro. He calls himself the something jester. I don't even know
the silent jester.
Silent jester. I wish he'd be more silent, but he's definitely a clown, and it's very fitting. And keep that man away from the top. The title scene.
Yeah,
he got a shot. He failed. Time to move down the roster and find a gimmick. Grab a tag rope, do some shit.
Yeah. And then we move on to the two highlight matches of this night. We had the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Tag Team Titles on the line. The Unbound Company team of Robbie X and Taiji Ishimori defeat Francesco Akira and Jacob Austin Young in 18 minutes and 11 seconds, with Robbie X hitting that awesome X Express on Jacob Austin Young to get the pin. And man, Josh, these guys did it again. Robbie X, this guy, we always talk about, Doki wrestling like he doesn't want to go back. We talk about Roderick Strong wrestling like he doesn't want to go back to the trailer parks. Well, this man, Robbie X, doesn't want to go back to Rev Pro. This man is out here like this is peak RLPW. Rich, I know you're in the comments. This is peak RLPW. The way this man was flipping all over the place. Like, this match was awesome.
Rich said comedy tag cycle down like after losing to Bruno. That shit's funny. Yeah, man, this match rocked. One thing that was refreshing is getting this title moved away from House of Torturism, so we don't have to kind of have the entire scene dragged down, especially since we're going to get some of that in the main event here. But these two teams, there were a lot of questions going into the match with the beatdown on Robbie X and whether his health would hold up, and whether or not United Empire could come up with some sort of like potential tandem finisher destroyer to like put away their opponents. And these guys just went balls to the wall, extremely fast paced. I don't know if I would call it a criticism, but it's something I noticed is that even though there was a lot of heat behind Francesco Akira and actually all four guys, they had a lot of history and story going into the match. And they definitely played into that. This kind of fit more in the mold of your classic junior style match where it was less about focusing. Like, for instance, we're going to talk about the IWGP match, the tag team match the following night, which is very heavy on the story for, and that's just a comparison point. This one didn't focus so much on the story points that they had leading into the match, but instead was like four guys that are like, fuck it, PWG style, we're going to ball. There was definitely some, United Empire taking shortcuts and being underhanded, but that was mixed into a slight extent. It didn't like overstay its welcome, but it more so was just four guys being like, we're going to showcase what we're about. We're going to basically put the entire junior division on notice and redeem this show, because what's following it is going to be, House of Torture, brain slop.
Right. So yeah, this match, really rocked. And there was a great segment at the end there where Ishimori put Akira in the bone lock, and it seemed like it was it, because like he did the whole thing where like he rolled him back in the middle, and previously Akira was able to tap out Ishimori leading into this match with his ground tarantula. So I was like, oh wait, is this Ishimori kind of getting that back, because like he did the whole roll, it was the middle of the ring, he was really wrenching on his shoulder. But Akira did a great job selling there, and they were able to break that up. And then, just some of the combos that Ishimori and Robbie X were doing, and Robbie X doing kind of the big spin dive to the outside from the top, and all his Hurricane Ranas and dives that he was doing. Like, I feel like he's just really like hitting his, peak right now. He's been great. He's super over. Big chance for him from the Corkin crowds all throughout the match, and man, he was just pulling everything out of the book. And yeah, he did that big Pele kick at one point.
Yeah, I loved the way that these guys were all able to play off one another, and the chemistry that certainly exists with both teams. Especially, we talked about last week how like this new United Empire tag team unit has big shoes to fill, following in the footsteps of Catch 2-2, and I felt like maybe it's a different flavor, but they didn't miss a beat whatsoever. I also liked Taiji Ishimori kind of using some of the maneuvers that Robbie X uses. Like what would you call that? The thing where he like flips and kicks them off of the apron.
It's kind of,
I don't even know what to call it.
Yeah, it's kind of like a handstand kick. I don't know. I think there's a special name for it. I don't know what it's. Yeah, it's some kind of like flash kick kind of thing.
Well, I loved Ishimori doing that later in the match, and we haven't. Like Ishimori is hit and miss. Some nights he takes a night off, and other times he decides to turn it up. And like in this match, he really turned it up. So that was awesome.
This tag team with Robbie X has him really motivated. Like he's going out there and he's doing all his high flying stuff and kind of trying to keep up with Robbie. Yeah,
he seems reinvigorated. You mentioned how highlighted Robbie X was, but I felt like Jacob Austin Young was also very much the focus here on his side of things. So that. Even though Ishimori and Francesco Akira, they had their time, they faced off, there was certainly a story element with those two guys. And I feel like their feud's going to continue way after the fact here. Mm-hmm. But those two guys being like the junior or, the younger guys of their groups and traditional pin eaters, they very much were like the focus and highlight, got opportunities to shine in this match. There was one incredible Yave style shoulder breaker that Ishimori did on Akira to set up the bone lock that I've never seen him do before. So I thought that was really fucking
that
cool.
was nasty.
But ultimately, what I felt like the major difference here, because this was, like I said, extremely fluid, guys in and out, boom, 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 flying all over the place. But what was kind of the difference maker here was the Unbound Company team being able to, for large, long, extended periods, isolate Jacob Austin Young and prevent him from ever really getting that fresh breath. Every time he tagged out, he was basically needing to come right back in. And, he kind of showcased his resilience down the stretch, but ultimately, like, kind of hard to beat a 450 splash into a
X Express
into an X Express. That's kind of game over. And the Unbound Company team, I thought that they were going to drop the belts here, but they retain.
Yeah, and we've been pretty critical on Jacob Austin Young in the past, and I thought he looked really good in this match, and they did a great job telling that story. He's scratching and clawing. He was upset last year that he was missed from Super Juniors. He got in this year, and he really wanted to win these junior tag team titles and be the one to get the pin for the team. And yeah, he was throwing everything out of his playbook, that Jacob's ladder, his version of the sliced bread out the corner, and some of his other big maneuvers. And he kept hitting move after move on Robbie X, and he would keep kicking out. And like, he would get so close, but like you mentioned, then he got isolated there towards the end. And then, those two big moves, and he was cooked.
Yeah. So post-match, Kosei Fujita comes out and lays down a challenge on behalf of the Ichiban Sweet Boys. They want another crack at those junior titles, which on the one hand, I mean, I can't really complain about it because the three times that these two teams have locked up with one another, it's been some of the best tag team wrestling, ever. But from a storyline standpoint, it is hard for me to say it makes sense because they just, dropped those titles like a month ago to them and haven't really done anything since then to get back in the title picture or situation. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, this might also speak to the idea that right now, as good as some of these matches involving those two teams have been, and, other groups like this new United Empire team are, there really kind of is a shallowness to the junior tag division currently. And I don't know if maybe some of this just has to do with the timing of things, because we're about to go into Super Juniors. So it's like, what team do you really focus on to heat them up in a short period of time just before that tournament? But all the same, from a kayfabe perspective, it's like they just dropped those titles and they haven't done shit since then. How are they back? You know?
Yeah. There was no pinfall for the challenge. Yeah, it was your typical, just walk out, claim your shot, and
in a hoodie.
and that last match, I think, was their third match. That was like the rubber match until, like, Unbound Company.
This will be the fourth one.
Yeah, they won, quote unquote, the series, and now they're kind of going to it again. So yeah, it does seem a little weird timing, but again, like, it's hard to complain because those matches are awesome every time they happen. And yeah, I'm wondering if there's going to be some kind of new wrinkle to this that continues their story. So then we go to the main event for the IWGP Junior Heavyweight title as Doki defeats Yo in 21 minutes and 1 second with the Suplex de la Luna. And we talked about last week, Yo doing some evilism, doing the everything is evil. So that was brought back here in this match. We had several evilisms with the everything is evil attempts. We had him throwing Doki into the ring bell table like Evil used to do, knocking over Tanahashi.
Bro, when he threw him into the timekeeper's table and the bump Tanahashi had, and they get the close up on Tanahashi's face, and he's just like he's like laid out. And my wife was in the room, and she's like, I was cracking up, and she's like, how could that possibly hurt Hiroshi Tanahashi? Like, how? And I was like, that man's not a worker anymore. And she's like,
a civilian.
Didn't he just wrestle in the Tokyo Dome like 4 months ago? And I was like, yeah, but he's done now. He's cooked. He don't have recuperative powers anymore. He's basically a referee. You get bumped and you're done,
Right. It's okay when wrestlers become managers, they become manager and they just, they get one bump and they're down.
Oh man. Yeah. I didn't get enough Yo evilisms. I know he did the Darkness Falls. He did the Darkness Scorpion. Dan Coffin says, he's tired. And he definitely, went for the everything is evil and stuff like that. But I don't know, man. Last year when he was in Super Juniors and he did the Okada cosplay, gear, I really wanted him to do something like that for the evilism or really to play the mind games, and he just didn't do that.
Dude, I thought he was going to come out in like full evil entrance, maybe bring back the laser light things, have the face, that little eyeliner.
Immortality 777 says, when Tanahashi went into the mist, it took his fighting spirit away. Also, my wife Megan, she was like, so every time I walk out here and you're watching a match, like Tanahashi's just sitting at ringside, is this just like what he does now? And I was like, only for the big matches. And she's like, why? And I was like, he's the president of the company.
You gotta make sure everything's on the up and up,
Oh man. The early portions of this match really weren't bad, mind you. They weren't like fantastic, but it was a solid match. Doki focused heavy on the knee of Yo, and I thought Yo did a good job like selling that knee throughout the match. And then Yo was focusing on evilisms, but down the stretch is when things started to pick up, and then that's when we got into the brain rot with we had 4 different referees in this match because they just kept getting fucking bumped. We had run-ins from all of the House of Torture juniors. Dick Togo, Sho, and who else ran out there?
Kanemaru.
And Kanemaru. We had the metal cookie sheet was used, whiskey sprayed. There was
the evil baseball chair spot.
Yeah, they try to attack with the pipe. They went for a magic killer. I think the one thing that got the most play online was the kissing spot where Sho had drank some of the whiskey, was going to spray it in the face of Yo, and then Yo, or maybe it was the opposite way. I don't know, but I think Yo had the whiskey.
Yeah,
or I don't remember, but like he ended up kissing Sho for like a super duper prolonged period. And I don't know. I know there's like some kissing lore between them. It's not really my thing, but I did think it was funny that
It wasn't Tanahashi's thing either.
Yeah, the photo that came out with Tanahashi, he's making the the disgusted face. But it is funny. I know the wokes won't like that, but it is funny because if you look at Tanahashi, he was doing the same kind of gimmick match in DDT with Dieno like not very long ago. So it is him like playing it up for the reaction and everything like that, which is it was objectively hilarious. I don't know that I need that in my wrestling, but
that's something you stick in a 10-man opening the show. I don't need that in my Junior Genesis main event.
Rich says Kiss don't like the Kiss. Tanahashi thought he was at DDT that night. But now I will say this, for all the criticism about, and did I love the overbooking, the Vince Russoism essentially at the end of this match? Not really. The Corkin crowd was eating it up. Like, they were super hot for this, but I think it was because they were very much behind Yo, and Yo was doing everything in his power to overcome the numbers game.
Yeah.
And I think that they thought he was going to win here. And that's where like they were so ecstatic about all this.
Yeah, I thought he was going to win for a second too, because he kept kicking out. He kept overcoming all the shenanigans. He survived all the hot slop. And it was like, oh, like he might actually finally do this. And then he ends up low blow. Doki gets to see everything is evil for a great near fall. Like, when he kicked out of that, I was like, oh, maybe Yo can do one of his wacky roll ups and get the win. But then Doki was like, nah, hold this suplex de la Luna. 1, 2, 3. Doki retains the championship.
Yeah, he got low blowed. He got magic killered. They did the baseball chair spot, which actually actually, I don't know if you saw, his face was all fucking red. I think they botched that shit and it messed his face up.
Yeah, and it's funny. Yeah. He was trying to do it earlier in the match, and he had the chair like all in the wrong position. I'm like, dude, if he does this, he's gonna like kill Doki.
But Doki picks up another win here, and as soon as he won, the crowd, you felt all of the air just go out of the building. Like, they were extremely despondent and disappointed here because they thought Yo was going to finally win the big one. But post-match, Tiger Mask comes out and kind of clears house and makes the official challenge for the IWGP Junior Heavyweight title. He remarked that he was the first person ever to wear this generation of the title, the miniature version of the IWGP belt that we have now, the V4. And said he's going to end his career as the reigning IWGP Junior Champion, and he's going to retire the belt with him. So, so he is next in line, which I was not necessarily. I did think that there was a chance we might get a title match before he retired, but all the same, I wasn't expecting this here. So I thought it was kind of a nice surprise and a good way to. Kind of, when the heels win the way that they do and everyone is so disappointed, it's good to have something to like bring them back up, Yeah.
It was surprising because we talked about last week. It seemed like they really hadn't been emphasizing him retiring or his run and this closing of this tour. Yeah, he announced his date and then, he comes out here and makes a challenge. And so, they're kind of doing a little bit of more of a story and push around him in his retirement tour. So, that was a nice way to kind of end the show with him making that challenge and getting his title match set up for the Dontaku tour. We have lots of questions here. Our boy Kevin from DC's back, and he had lots of questions on this match. First, he says, as someone who started watching NJPW during 2015, specifically at Dominion, the first two young lions I took notice of and have followed nearly their entire careers are Yohei Komatsu and Shota Tanaka. They've been linked at the hip during their entire careers, all the way to Sho's betrayal nearly 5 years ago. Now that Yo got his taste of the forbidden fruit during his title challenge on the 2nd, can you both confidently say that the 12-year arc is finally complete? Has the boyhood dream come true for Yo?
So the boyhood dream for Yo was not winning the junior title. It was, playing tonsil hockey with Sho.
Yeah.
That's what we're to believe.
That's what Kevin laying scenario out for.
I mean, I'm not one to speculate on the personal lives of these individuals. So far be it for me to believe that this is the one and only time that anything like this could have ever hypothetically happened.
Yeah. We don't know what went on in that
I will say this. I don't think
room.
This is what's that?
We don't know what happened in that chaos locker room.
Yeah, we don't know who the Molten Chaos was. We don't know what was going on behind closed doors. You know, maybe this would be a good question to ask Rocky the next time he comes on the show, if he ever returns. Be like, yo, by the way, inquiring minds want to know. So showing, yo, what the fuck is
in a follow-up, Kevin says, do you think Sho Tanaka was really into it?
I don't know, man.
Then he says,
maybe, I don't know.
He says, I timed it. It was 19 glorious seconds. Then Yo had Everything is Evil. Is that move now officially Yo's move? Does he need to kiss his opponent for 19 seconds first for it to really have any impact?
I would like for that move to be transferred over to Wolf Aaron, to be honest with you. Namely for two reasons. Number one, he's the one that beat that man Evil, got him out. Got the fuck out of here. I think we need a FOH Evil this year, by the way.
Yes.
But also, you know, the individual who invented the STO was Noya Ogawa, you know, who was also an Olympian judoka. And I feel like he should carry on the lineage of utilizing that move personally. Plus, Yo can't get the shit done with it. So why the fuck should you keep using it?
Right. He failed. Give it to Wolf. Everything is Wolf.
Yeah, I don't. Bro, Yo's a hoe, bro.
In
more ways than one. He's proven it here.
And then Kevin's last question here. He says, more so than Kosei Vegeta or Master Wato, I'm really disappointed that Yo didn't take the title from Doki on Thursday. Now Tanada's done for the foreseeable future. I'm all in on Yo as my silly guy I always root for in New Japan. Well, is my silly guy ever going to be junior heavyweight champion?
That's a great question, and probably leads into just I had some curiosity about this myself over the weekend, and decided to put my Chris Samsa hat on and do some research. Cause I was like, you know, I was starting to think like, are we entering Yo as the Goto of the juniors at this point in time? Have we crossed that threshold? So I was like, well, I know that there are definitely more people than him that have failed in title shots, but in situations like this, it's not a question of who's failed the most times. It's who has failed the most times without ever actually winning the title. So I went through the cage match. I did all of the deep dive history. I tallied everything up, and I was able to find two individuals who, or actually like the two records of the people that have failed the most times without winning the IWGP junior title. So the runner-up is 5. And right now, Wato is one of the holders of 5 failed title shots without winning the belt. The other co-holder of that record is Dean Malenko, believe it or not.
Iceman.
Yeah, the Iceman. But with Dean Malenko, it's a little bit like, I don't totally count it, because a couple of those times that he challenged was for the J Crown, and it was in WCW against Ultimo Dragon. So if we're just kind of and I know that like New Japan had a hand in, they booked their people, you know what I mean? But like, does it count? It counts, but it's not quite the same. It's not like him wrestling in Japan and losing in front of the audience. You know, he only did that 3 times, technically. But the other two individuals who hold the most times failing and never winning the belt is Yo at 6. And believe it or not, he's tied with Black Tiger 2, one Eddie Guerrero, who never won the junior title, which I was a little surprised at that.
Yo and Eddie Guerrero, same level.
Yeah, Yo and Eddie Guerrero. But again, it is Eddie Guerrero under the Black Tiger gimmick. So, you know, maybe not quite the same thing.
Yeah.
What I did find, though, is in the history of the junior title, generally speaking, most individuals who ever fail or ever challenge for the title, they win it within their first title shot ever, or up to about 3 failed defenses. Usually people that are going to win it, the most they lose is 3, and then typically win that title. The record for most failed title defense or challenges and then going on to actually finally win the title, that distinction is held by Shinjiro Otani and El Desperado, who both failed 4 times before finally winning the belt. So what that means is, I'm not saying that Yo or Wato will never win this title. I think there's a good chance they both still could. But if and when they do, they'll be making history because historically nobody has ever challenged for this belt more than 4 times and still gone on to win the title in like a 5th, 6th, or 7th like challenge. It's just never happened before.
Yeah. And it's great. Yeah, I mean, at this point, it's hard. I don't know if they will.
I think there was a good chance Yo could have potentially won it that time he got hurt against Sho.
Yeah.
But I don't know. And, you know, speaking of like, has he reached the pinnacle when it comes to Sho, is like, that was their big moment. Like, we're finally going to have a great match together. It's going to be, you know, for the title. And then he got hurt and they never gotten back to that point. And it's kind of like, fuck, you know, but maybe that's what they kind of, I shouldn't say deserve because he got hurt, but like for 2 guys that were such a great tag team to never really have had a great match against one another outside of their young lion years, kind of sus.
Sad.
Yeah.
Well, let's jump over to Sakura Genesis. So the big show here closing off the tour. This was Saturday, April 4th from Ryogoku Sumo Hall. A reported attendance of 6,009. So a little bit short of the last 3 years, 2025, 6,640, 2024, 6,632, and 2023, 6,510. Overall, I don't think it's that bad being that off, considering you have kind of 2 unproven guys in the main event with Callum Newman and Yota Tsuji.
Listen, bro, in the past year, losing Hiromu, Naito, Bushi, Evil, you know, Gabe Kidd, David Finlay, Jeff Cobb. That's a lot of different names to have jumped ship within just one calendar year. And for, like you said, for them to turn around and headline with 2 guys, well, you know, Tsuji's had a little bit of a run here. He's had some you know, main events, but Callum Newman, outside of you know, the New Japan Cup, he's an unproven commodity when it comes to drawing. I think that the litmus test here for a lot of individuals was, could they break 6K with this headline? And they just barely did. But I think that is a really, really strong number considering the amounts of, and then also obviously no Tanahashi any longer. You know, that's the other, you know, the other big one you have to think about. With all of those names gone, it's always expected when you're in the middle of a rebuilding phase and you're running with new talents that haven't totally been proven, for the numbers to drop, and for it to only drop, you know, like let's say a 500 to 600 number average. Yeah. Would it be great for them to hit the same, you know, numbers they've hit the past 3 years? Sure.
Yeah.
But I heard a lot of speculation that they wouldn't break 6, that they were going to hit in the 5-ish. And so I think that this is a number to really be celebrated, honestly, considering everything that they had going up against them.
Yeah. So show opened up with a pre-show tag match. We had Kushida teaming up with Masatora Yasuda, and they defeated Taisi Nakahara and Tatsuya Matsumoto, with Yasuda getting the Boston Crab on Nakahara for the submission victory. So kind of a little mini warm-up for Kushida as he gets ready for Super Juniors, and then, of course, we had all the young lions going at it, and this had Nakahara's first 3 singles opponents featured in the match.
Yeah. Nice to see Yasuda taking advantage of an opportunity to, you know, just kind of brutalize one of his kohais or whatever, or kosai or whatever the word is, you know, and he hasn't had the best winning record, but a new guy comes in and he's like, you're going to hold this Boston Crab, take this loss. So good to see that. One funny thing that they talked about on commentary is that Kushida facing off against Nakahara this week, that he beat him with a headlock. So this man's getting beaten all over the place, but I really love the fire that Nakahara is coming in with, basically being like, fuck these guys. And it is funny because Yasuda and Matsumoto came in after him. Technically, even though in the pecking order he's below them, technically he's probably their senpai.
Yeah.
And he's like, I hate this generation. I'm going to fuck everybody up.
Yeah, and that headlock was a big part of the story of this matchup. When him and Kushida were in there, he kept working and working to get the headlock on Kushida, and he would finally get it. And it was kind of a big moment there for him, a big win to get the headlock on. Yeah,
and the same thing happened in their singles match. This, we reviewed it last week. So nice to see these like little, it's just great. We always love, reviewing the young lions, seeing their progress and everything. And then, Kushida, right. Tiger Mask is gone. There's a spot, big brother. We need a grumpy junior dad,
Yeah.
Something tells me he's going to be a little bit nicer. He's not going to be like brutalizing those guys the way that like Liger and Tiger Mask did.
So following that, we had the TMDK team of Hartley Jackson and Kosei Fujita defeating Master Wato and Togi Makabe with, once again, Hartley Jackson hitting the jagged edge on Togi Makabe. Last week we joked, like, is Makabe actually going to take that bump? And, he saved up his bump counter because he knew he was going for a ride. Ate that big Death Valley driver, and Hartley Jackson gets the big win, as it seems like he has his sights set for G1 Climax.
Yeah, he talked about how post-match in the backstage comments, he talked about how the G in G1 stands for Jag. I don't know. That didn't make sense to me. But, I will say this. Far be it from me to wish that guys don't get a pay date and don't get to work Sumo Hall and everything like that. But looking at these first few matches, and these weren't bad matches, everybody's been working really hard. There seems to be a positive vibe in New Japan ever since the start of this year. But it is a situation where I am still wondering, like, we could have had some of these matches, I guess, kind of were on the road too, but it's like we could have had the junior matches on this show and made it like an all-time legendary status. And instead we've got these preview matches are not bad, but they were a little superfluous. They weren't forwarding any major ongoing stories. And that's a situation where I have to question, like, could they, for Sakura Genesis, should they have like just switch some of the shit out,
Yeah, I was talking to Fraser. He was on the way to the show messaging me, and we were talking about some stuff, and he was like, yeah, he's a little bit disappointed that there are so many more multi-man matches on this card. And I'm like, yeah.
Than there usually would be?
Yeah, we talk about all the time, obviously there wasn't technically 2 nights of this show, but you had 2 big title matches that could have been featured on this show to really elevate it. We do have like 2 nights of Dontaku coming up, and there's a lot of stuff that's split up across that whole Dontaku tour. It's like, how better could one of those shows be if you kind of combine some of the bigger stuff onto just one show?
I mean, it's a double-edged sword because we've talked about it before. You have a big Korakuen show. You want to have something to kind of anchor that. If they had held off, it probably would have looked similar to some of the other Road 2s where it's nothing but previews up and down. But I think the biggest issue is the fact that they don't have the meaningful undercard matches here. Some of these basically are Road 2 level matches, even if they were worked with more enthusiasm and vigor. It still is a situation where when you look at that top to bottom, you're kind of, head scratching a little bit, wondering like, could we be doing better?
Yeah. So then following that, we had the Unbound Company team of Robbie X, Taiji Ishimori, and the Dragon Shingo Takagi defeating the United Empire team of Francisco Akira, Jake Lee, and Jacob Austin Young in 8 minutes, 11 seconds. Shingo hitting a pumping bomber and the last of the Dragon on Jacob Austin Young to get the win here. So Shingo, we talked about him, really wanting to challenge for the title. So this was kind of a, angle alert, kind of keep your eyes open moment here, with Shingo being the one getting the pinfall here and racking up some wins. And you had the fallout of the tag team title match with the Unbound team and United Empire team. And there was also, we talked about the heat with Jake Lee and Shingo as well. So Shingo getting a little bit of a comeuppance by getting the win here for this team.
Yeah, and even if we have some criticisms about the structure of the show, it became pretty clear with, the Dontaku tour and Wrestling Red Zone and Hino Kuni and yada, 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 that there was going to be a lot of setting up for the upcoming tours. There would be angles. And I would say from this point on, even though this isn't the business end of the show, you started to see some of the victories equating to more meaningful results, setting up challengers for the next tour. I like the idea that Shingo beat Jacob Austin Young here because, number one, JAY has been just beating all the young lions and all the the like pin eaters like Gedo and shit on the all tour.
Yeah.
And then Shingo's not a junior anymore, but he's like, oh, you want to be in the Super Juniors? How about you hold this Last of the Dragon and see what it would have been like back in 2019? I went undefeated in my block, and you would have definitely lost to me.
Yeah. So we build up Shingo here. We talked about the Jake Lee paint. So that
Jake Lee did, in fact, though, like this was the culmination of like he's been saying I'm gonna do like the full face paint, and I mean when he came out with he had a mask, he's got his little fucking monkey, I guess,
emotional support monkey.
And it's like, bro, you're not gonna. I know Hiromu sold a lot of those cats, but you're not going to sell any fucking monkeys. Maybe you will. But he's got a mask. That's when you know, like, someone's in dire straits. Like, I think someone in United Empire needs to have a sit down heart to heart with the man, because it's like, bro, you got to stick to one gimmick. You got 3 gimmicks going right now. So it's a bit too much, but he's been talking about unveiling the new face or the new face paint. And when he finally like showed it and it's all white and it's just like the black it's not even really all that cool, and then B, it reminded me of seeing Yoshitatsu at he's part of what's the group in
I'm blanking on the group name now.
It don't fucking matter. Ozawa's group, whatever the fuck they're basically House of Torture, no House of Torture X Noah, like that's the shit. And his face is just basically painted like he's Yoshitatsu. So I do take this, though, as unless and I don't want to get too much into the Jake Lee lore, but it could go one of 2 ways. It could be potentially him adopting an entirely new personality a la Sting and just becoming this new character. Or I'm guessing it's probably closer to like God-ism, where it's like, I'm just who I am, but sometimes I fuck around and wear face paint.
Yeah, Bruce Pritchard used to talk about the box of gimmicks, and yeah, it feels like he just kind of fell into that and just started grabbing stuff, and he's got the face paint, got the monkey, he's got the mask, he's doing all this stuff. So yeah, he really kind of stands out as a sore thumb with that United Empire group right now.
Yeah, bro. Like as of right, and it's such a. I mean, I hate burying the guy, but like when you kind of reflect on what he looked like on 1-4 and how the whole like world was his oyster, it was right in front of him.
Yeah.
And now it's like, I don't know, bro, bring back TJP. Like, come on.
So moving on to the next match, we had Hantai team of Aaron Wolf, Tiger Mask, Toru Yano, and Yo. They defeated the House of Torture team of Don Fale, Doki Sho, and Yoshinobu Kanemaru. So fallout from the junior title match, and then continuation of Aaron Wolf and Don Fale's feud. Wolf using that reverse triangle choke on Kanemaru, the one he used to beat Evil to get the submission victory here. And I thought Wolf is looking good. He's been using this landslide type maneuver, similar to what Nakamura's been doing for a while now. That's looked really good, and they keep building up to him trying to suplex Fale. He was able to do like a snap version suplex to Fale. So I think he's looking good in these matches.
Yeah, the one thing you mentioned, Fraser. So Fraser, I'm actually sending something off to him, and I just checked the tracking for you, bud, and your shipment has departed Miami as of the 4th, so it's on its way.
Nice.
But yeah, I think the biggest difference, I wouldn't call the move he's using the landslide, even though that's what's wrong with, I'm so tired.
Charlton.
Like, what? No. Walker, yeah. Walker called it the landslide, but the difference is the landslide, they fall vertical to the position that he's sitting out in, and this is horizontal, so it's a little different. I don't know if he's going to come up with his own, name of the move or whatever, but it is nice to see him kind of unveil, a new power wrinkle to his game, so he's making some strides there. Plus, obviously, we're seeing here Tiger Mask and Doki, that match kind of being previewed. Tiger Mask wasn't even originally on this card,
right?
But they shifted things, got him on the card for this preview. This is the final Ryogoku Sumo Hall match of his entire career, so that's a little bit meaningful there. And I don't know, they could have. could have had him pick up a victory here, but I guess Wolf has to has to shine. So
they have to try and rehab that man. So following this match, we got the final announcements for Best of the Super Junior 33. We got the final 2 participants, and then they did the full A and B block lineup reveal. So the final 2 participants from AEW, Nick Wayne making his second appearance, and then kind of seems out of left field from Freedom's Jun Kasai announced as the final participant for the tournament. And then for the block, so A block, we got Master Wato, Ryusuke Taguchi, Kosei Fujita, Robbie X, Francesco Akira, Doki, Titan, Valiente Jr., Nick Wayne, and Jun Kasai. And then over in the B block, we got El Desperado, Kushida, Yo, Robbie Eagles, Taiji Ishimori, Jacob Austin Young, Sho, Kanemaru, Daisuke Sasaki, and Hayo from Dragon Gate.
Yeah. So, the way that they announced all of this, basically between the 28th of March and then April 2nd, they were revealing like 3 names every single day, right? And I know we discussed how that was being received and if fans liked that. And I think for the most part, it was positive. But the big question was, okay, but on, the 4-4 show, they're going to announce the last 2 names and the lineups. So we sort of had to expect like, okay, whoever these last 2 names are, they're going to be big names that, kind of, they have to have an ace up their sleeves because they've already announced the rest of the field. Mm-hmm. One thing I noticed as well, I talked about a few weeks ago how they unveiled the poster and, there was 13 names on there. Well, turns out all 13 names that were on the poster ended up being in the field. But the rest of the names, the other like 6 or 7 names for the most part, were all outsiders that were brought in and surprises. I noticed that when they announced Nick Wayne, I do think that it's good to bring him back. And I think it's a great opportunity and learning experience. And I'm sure in the West that is going to have some intrigue, especially with how good he is and how good he was last time. But I did notice that the Sumo Hall crowd, they basically didn't react almost at all to his name being announced whatsoever. So at this point hasn't really endeared himself to the live audience.
Yeah.
Jun Kasai got a huge ovation. People were really excited to kind of get that name. But then here's where I kind of questioned their rollout strategy was when they started announcing the blocks, literally almost nobody got any reaction whatsoever. And I don't even think that that's a reflection of we don't like Desperado anymore. We're not behind Kosei Fujita. I think it's just literally the fact that the names were already out there. So how much I know that they're announcing the blocks. So I think their thinking was, okay, even if the names are out there, once they start seeing the blocks, the excitement will build. But there was almost no live reaction for any of this. The only person that got any reaction was Jun Kasai. And it does make me wonder, would it have been better for them to just do the traditional way and hold off, get the big excitement on the live show? Or did they get more benefit out of slow rolling it? I don't know. Maybe they did. Maybe they had like interactions and like online and stuff like that help. I don't know which is better, but from the live viewing experience, it's always fun for me to see like the crowd like,
yeah, do the big pops. Yeah.
That.
Yeah.
There was no pops. What happens when the pops stop?
So we did have some questions here. We kind of touched on it a little bit. Def Franco 720 says, what are your thoughts on New Japan's strategy with the Super Junior announcement?
Well, I already kind of told you my observation. I don't know enough personally to say which was better. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if there was a greater advantage that the office is aware of with this new way of doing things. We've always talked about how it's nice for them to try new things and to be experimental and not be too stuck in their way. So I can't be too critical of it, but I didn't think the live reaction was great. Jeremy, I don't know, what were your like overall feelings on this?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it was interesting to try something new. I feel like it kind of killed it when they put the poster out, because I was like, all right, if you knew you were going to do this strategy,
yeah,
why put the poster out? Like, I feel like the Super Junior branding is strong enough to just throw the logo on there and for the poster, and maybe do a new poster like once the lineup's revealed. So I feel like there's maybe some miscommunication in marketing there. Like, they could have done, like, help, you know, conceal that a little bit better. But yeah, like you mentioned, like, hearing the pops, and it's kind of the same thing for, like, you know, Fantastica Mania, when they're, you know, the ladies announcing all the names for the tour for the first time, and you kind of get the excitement of all these guys, you know, oh, Mystico's coming back, you know, this guy's coming in. And so, yeah, that's a big part of it. It's like, all right, yeah, obviously we want to see the matchups on the blocks, but yeah, seeing the rollout of, all right, who is coming in, you know, is this guy coming back in? What outsider are they bringing in? It's all that intrigue. And then, yeah, they kind of killed it when it's like, all right, boom, Jun Kasai, big pop. And it's like, oh, by the way, now here are the block announcements. So I feel like there could have been a little bit more juice to that had they just done it the original way.
It might have been better if they had done the block, and you know how they do it with G1, where they do the block announcements and then the extra guys get announced last, and then you're like, oh, and then maybe we would have felt a little different if, you know.
Which I thought that's what they were going to do. It's like, all right, you start listing all the people, and the last two people that would announce in the block would be the two last guys. Because, like, you did the Nick Wayne and Jun Kasai, you had the big pop, and it was like, oh, okay, now we're going to do the full, like, block announcement.
Yeah, I'm looking at the original poster, and everybody from the regular roster that was announced was on there. The only person was JAY. He's the one person that was excluded that's in here. I guess you could also, like, count Teton since he, like, splits time, but yeah, they pretty much already, like, spoiled everybody. Immortality 777 says, can't wait to have my eyes bleed while having to watch Taguchi versus Jun Kasai without weapons. I don't think you should be so sure about that. I think we're going to see some ass play. We're going to see some some outside weapons when it comes to that guy.
We had a question from Siamese Twin Cobra saying, I hope Jun Kasai eats Nick Wayne for breakfast and chits him out before the next show. Joking aside, who's your pick to win? My immediate guess is Akira. Then again, it's been the Desperado show these days.
I don't know. I think for me, I was thinking about that the other day. My knee jerk choice, just without even thinking about it, would be Kosei Fujita. Mm-hmm. But he won last year, and I don't know if they're gearing up for another Ichiban Sweet Boys, tag team title run potentially leading into the tournament. If that, makes it easier or harder for him to win. Of course, I think he mentioned Francesco Akira. I think that's probably going to be your answer, and that's probably a good way to go with things as well. But I honestly haven't analyzed it enough just yet to even have a firm answer.
Yeah, and also we'll do our big preview and prediction show and kind of have some more time to think about everything that's happening and give our final predictions. But, I mean, as of right now, I think, Francesco Akira is a guy I would like to see win. But I'm like, I don't know how many white men are you going to have win tournaments this year. Callum just won the New Japan Cup. I feel like, some fans might be mad if it's a, straight white sweep in all tournaments.
There's a white wave coming. Go ahead.
I think an Akira Fujita final would be awesome.
So, we'll talk more about these guys, but some of these, outsiders, Daisuke Sasaki's from DDT, Valiente Jr. and Teton from CMLL, Hyo, which I don't like that his name's Hyo because it sounds too much like Yo. And in his song they go Hyo, and in Yo's song they go Yo. And Yo, and I hate, but he's from Dragon Gate, which also we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But I'm just perplexed that Dragon Gate is sending anybody over,
right?
Considering the Dragon Dia news. And then, Nick Wayne from AEW and Jun Kasai from Freedoms. Some of the exclusions, guys that I think could have been in this field and were not included. Oh, obviously there's Tiger Mask 4, which he hasn't been in a while, but it is his retirement year. So I'm surprised he wasn't in the field. Daiki Nagai and Zane J are both, quasi almost graduated-ish young lions that could have potentially, I know a lot of people don't think of Zane J as a junior, but he is listed as one within the company. And if he is quote unquote,
he's on the site, I think he's listed at 95 kilos. So he's right within the weight limit.
Templario, who, obviously there's only so much CMLL, inclusion, but the fact that he is technically UE as well, and he's not in it. But the other two names that have been in tournaments recently and I thought had a really good shot to be outside names were Kukai and Dragon Daya, or just Daya, I guess he's going by these days. But, you know, I was a little surprised, especially at those two names not being in the tournament.
Right. There's been a lot of speculation. I think you have some stuff in the news about New Japan. They're scouting and trying to bring in other juniors. So it kind of sounds like that Daya and Kukai would be coming in and be a part of the regular junior roster. So, yeah, I figured, one of the two special announcements has to be one of these guys. Daya being the bigger name, maybe it would have been him. But, yeah, for whatever reason, both these guys out of the tournament. So maybe we'll see them later on in the year. And then let's see here. A question from West Question 7252. Were you guys pleased with the surprise entries of Nick Wayne and Jun Kasai? What do you expect from them in Best of Super Juniors tournament?
I was excited for both of those names. You know, I think Jun Kasai was sort of like the ace up their sleeves, why they waited and got the big, you know, announcement. And even though, you know, Jeremy mentioned it's a little bit of a surprise, I mean, you have to think Jun Kasai with his expanded, you know, interactions over the past few years when it comes to Desperado. He's been involved in all of those Taiji Ishimori produce shows, which are technically under the New Japan umbrella. He worked those strong shows in Cork and Hall a while back, and he's even done some tag team matches in New Japan. He challenged for the junior title against Despy at the Death Pain Invitational. So he's kind of been, you know, obviously he's still doing his thing. He's a freelancer. He's from Freedoms, yada, yada, yada. But he's become more like into the zeitgeist and awareness of the New Japan audience in the past few years. Mm-hmm. And he's probably one of the biggest names that you can technically include into, you know, from a domestic standpoint, that is a little shocking. So I think it's a good inclusion. How will it play out in terms of like the style of match and how he's received by the audience and everything? I don't know. That remains yet to be seen, but his inclusion I'm excited about.
Yeah, I thought these were two intriguing names. You know, Nick Wayne has just come back from injury, so he really hasn't been on AEW TV a ton since he's been back. And so
I wonder if his mom's coming.
I think that's a question that Despy wants to know as well. But I think it's great for Nick to kind of, you know, get him back up and running since he's been off for a year, however long he's been out. And again, good training, good experience for him. I like Nick Wayne. I think he's really good. And so I think that, you know, being in New Japan is really good for him to kind of hone his craft and get some more exposure. And then, like you mentioned, Jun Kasai, I think for me, I'm just a little surprised because I feel like he's kind of just been, you know, like the produce show. Like, well, you can come in the New Japan ring, but it's going to be a part of like, you know, these Despy produce shows and the Tai Chi kind of produce shows. Like, we're not going to put you on the main New Japan show kind of deal. But I know they're doing the whole Death Pain Invitation now coming up in Vegas. So
that's just another good point.
It's just a name I just hadn't thought. Like, I would have never guessed, like, oh, they're going to put Jun Kasai in there, especially with some of the other rumored names of people signing. But I'm excited. But it's going to be curious to see, does he get any leeway in his matches? Will there be some ref bumps so he can, you know, pull out the light tubes and barbed wire? It's going to be interesting to see what kind of style he works here.
Yeah, it is going to be interesting to see how, if he, like you said, if he's given any sort of leeway whatsoever. But, you know, it's a tournament. They tend to be lax, especially on the outside of the ring. And, you know, maybe he's going to pull the old Abdullah and, you know, stick a fucking fork or a foreign item, you know, down his drawers.
Yeah.
And, you know, when the referee's not, it's just jab the fuck out of people.
Next question here. Kevin from DC said, what are the odds on Doki going 9-0 during Best Super Juniors and having a Takagi-like run of dominance through low blows and other nefarious, shitty ways of winning?
Oh, I wish someone would give me some fucking action on this one, because there's zero chance that is going to happen. Obviously, he's going to win a lot because he's the champion. Well, actually, yeah, this starts in May. So it is interesting because it's like coming out of the tournament in, what is it, June or July, he's got Tiger Mask in waiting. So I wonder if Tiger Mask is going to be like working.
The title match is before Super Juniors.
Oh, okay. So the title match is before, and then he's going to retire in July.
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay. So that makes a little bit more sense. Yeah, there's no way he's winning all his matches though. He's gonna win a lot, just like he said. But
yeah, I could see him go like he wins like 4 or 5 straight, and then he starts losing.
One question I had, I know they've announced the dates, they've announced the blocks. Do we happen to have, I've been busy today, so I didn't look at the news. Do we have a definitive answer about how the playoffs work? Is it just going to be the traditional, the winner of the block advances to the finals, or is there going to be like playoffs or anything like that we know of?
Yeah, I didn't see anything when I was pulling stuff today, but let me look on the site to see if they announced how that final format's going to be. Let's see. So I'll see running through June 7th, conclusion in Ota. They have all the bios on the entrance. Yeah, I don't see anything in this write-up here on what format they're using.
Okay. Well, I'll do some digging into that, but it sounds like it's probably just going to be block winner versus block winner to face off in the finals, essentially.
Yeah. And then last question here from Kevin. He says, let's say that for whatever reason, Despy, Fujita, Wato, and Yo don't win Best Super Junior and can't challenge Doki at Road to Dominion, since obviously there won't be a junior title match at Dominion. Who is the remaining favorite to challenge and beat Doki for the title?
Well, that's a pretty low. Okay, so we're saying no Despy, no Fujita, no Wato, and no Yo. I personally don't anticipate Wato or Yo winning this thing, even though they both won Super Juniors in the past. They're also, you got a bunch of guys there, Despy, Fujita, Wato, and Yo, who have all won the Super Juniors or Super Junior, I should say, and failed to win the title after winning the tournament. So that's kind of funny. Yeah, so if you take those four names away, I think Francesco Akira is de facto the number one, because I mean he probably should have listed him as one of the guys.
Yeah,
in his like.
The only thing though is like, I feel like it's been a big chase of bay faces to beat him. Do you do this dastardly heel being the one to get the pop of finally beating Doki?
Oh, you know what? That is a good point, because Francesco Akira has like kind of recently turned. I personally, I'm not too opposed to the idea of heel versus heel in a big spot. I think that you could still do Francesco Akira being as heelish as he has been and still be like baby faced to an extent against Doki, because of the fact that he is like the preeminent heel junior and of the slop. And I think it could still work personally, but you're probably right there. With that being said, let me ask you, if there is no let's just throw Francesco Akira into there for the reason you said. Mm-hmm. What's a name that you see on here that could potentially win this and facilitate that role?
So there's two names that kind of pop out to me. One I think could be a little bit more realistic, and one it might seem a little bit out of left field of everybody in here. So first of all, Teton, he was in the finals against Wato.
Yeah.
He's a part of Unbound Company, big baby face. Like, I don't know what his, CMLL days look like, but, historically in the past, we had guys like Dragon Lee coming in and winning the title, doing some tours. And also, here, Teton's a part of a, very popular faction. So he's a guy that I think would be great to beat Doki. He can wrestle that lucha style with Doki and get a big pop for winning that title. And he could be a transitional guy, or he can hold it for a while depending on his date. So I think he'd be a good guy to do it. The other name I would say is Robbie X. And I know that some people feel some kind of way about him with the look, but I think his work has just been phenomenal this year. And we saw, the crowd get behind him and getting the big win and winning the tag team title. So if they were to lose the belts to Ichiban Sweet Boys before a tournament, I think him winning would be cool, and then him being Doki would be awesome.
Yeah, I mean, Robbie Eagles is always a name. This will be, with his 8th entry, this will be the most times that a foreigner has ever competed in the Super Juniors. I think he's passing up Will Ospreay's record, so congrats to him. But that's another babyface name that you can't totally discount them, even though I don't believe he's gonna. I love Robbie. I just don't think that they're gonna go with him in the tournament. But if you had to get rid of all those other names and you're just left with like who's on the roster that could potentially be a babyface foil opposite Doki, then, you know, that's a name. He's a former champion. That's a way you could go. One other name that I feel like, you know, it's so unlikely that he would win here, but you can't totally discount it, is Nick Wayne. He is an AEW guy. You know, typically now Tony has had some AEW guys in these tournaments. They've done okay. They don't tend to have the same level of protection as some of the guys that he's had in the G1 in the past, right? But they also tend to be younger, developing guys that don't need the protection. But Nick Wayne has he held a title in ROH, right?
Yeah, he was the TV champion.
That's what I thought. Yeah. And I'm not personally opposed to the idea of having outsiders go to the finals of the Super Juniors. We've seen stuff like that in the past, like, Dr. Wagner Jr. comes to mind. Super Delphin was another one. You know, there's some history with that sort of thing. And in the G1, you think of like when Jun Akiyama, you know, went to the finals, and that stuff is always really exciting. I know some people would probably hate it because he's an AEW guy, but there's probably a very good chance, just an offhand chance, looking at the field, Nick Wayne might be the MVP of the A block when it's all said and done. So I'm not advocating for him to win it, but if you had to get rid of all those other names, he might be a good finalist. He might be a guy that could really benefit and get the rub from facing off against Doki. I don't know that he should win the junior title or not.
Yeah.
But he's probably a guy that they don't need on TV and could really benefit from the Japanese experience, you know?
Yeah, he really hasn't been on TV much since his return from injury. So, I mean, why not have him, you know, spend maybe the rest of the year in Japan and work some more tours and build up some experience. One thing before we move on, just looking at the blocks right now, I know we'll do a bigger preview prediction. Which block do you think is stronger?
You know, that's a great question because, you know, Jeremy, I know we're going to do a preview in the future. I'm having trouble getting excited about the Super Juniors, and I can't totally I think what it is I don't know if someone asked this question, but I thought I read in the questions was someone asking us, what match from each block are you most excited about? And I started looking and I was like, there's good talent. There's the element of outside, you know, surprises that might bring a new wrinkle to things. You know, JY is getting his first run in the tournament. So there's some cool stuff going on, but I don't see the matches offhand that I look at it and I'm like, that one right there is just going to be blow away. It's going to be a match of the year contender. I can't fucking wait. Let's go. Mm-hmm. There's very few of those matches. With that being said, though, I sort of think the A block is probably stronger, but I'm not super sold on it because there's a really good even mix of good guys and people that I have no use for in the tournament, like guys like Taguchi, people like, you know, most nights Yo, unless he decides to turn on, but most of the time Yo, Sho, Kanemaru, stuff like that. Doki, obviously, at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Wato's not going to probably blow anyone's socks off. Yeah. And I haven't heard great things personally about modern day Daisuke Sasaki. So, you know, it's just like, I'm looking at it and I'm like, there is some really great talent here, but this lineup and these blocks, they don't have me rearing to go for Super Juniors personally.
Yeah, I have a hard time to figure out, which block do I like better? Because, like, I can make arguments for either block. And I think at first I was, like, leaning B block. It's like, you got Despy, Kushida, Eagles, Ishimori, Jacob Austin Young's been stepping his game up. But then you have those unknowns in Hyo and Daisuke, and then you obviously Sho and Kanemaru. It's like, okay, that kind of brings that block down. Now, okay, A block, I'm like, oh, well, you know, you got Vegeta, you got Robbie X, you got Akira, you got Teton, you got Nick Wayne. But then it's like, all right, Jun Kasai's there, but he, you know, excels in death matches. It's like, he's not going to do a death match here. Then you got Taguchi's going to do the butt play. You got Doki's going to do the slop. So I'm like,
Here's what I would say. Okay, yeah, you're going to get slop from Doki. You're going to get butt play from Taguchi, but Taguchi's going to turn it on for at least one match. So you're going to get that. Wato, he'll turn it on for a match or two. It's whatever. The guys that are on the roster that are going to be working their asses off are Fujita, Robbie X, and Akira. You can count on all three of them to kind of carry the block. But then you're going to get luchador action from Teton. You're going to get Valiente Jr. going out there trying to make a name for himself. And then we know how good Nick Wayne is. And I think that Jun Kasai's, he's going to bring a different taste and keep things fresh within the block. Even if he's not wrestling classic matches, it's going to be totally different from what everybody else is doing. For those reasons, I think that is it's just a more flavorful block that's probably going to be easier to digest than, there's a lot I could say about B block that is not necessarily the highest. I think, honestly, Robbie Eagles and Ishimori and JAY are going to be the guys like kind of carrying the load there.
Yeah. All right, well, let's move on to the next match from Sakura Genesis. This is United Empire, Great Okan Hanare, and the return of Will Ospreay. And they defeat El Desperado, Taichi, and Uemura in 14 minutes and 54 seconds. Ospreay hitting a nasty hidden blade on Taichi, followed by the Stormbreaker to get the win.
Yeah, so I mean, some of the big deals going into this. Ospreay, he debuted for this company a decade ago at Sakura Genesis in this building. He hasn't wrestled for New Japan in over 2 years. He hasn't wrestled in this building in over like 3 years. And this is, he has a tattoo of Sumo Hall like on his arm. So this is like one of his absolute favorite places to perform. And it was the reunion of like some of the original United Empire members kind of teaming together. But, the interesting thing here is sort of the dichotomy that exists where you've got Great Okan and Hanare, who haven't necessarily up to this point shifted their behavior or attitudes to align with what the rest of United Empire have started to shift towards in terms of like being heels under Callum Newman. And we started to kind of see their alignment turn more that way. And this sort of rift that exists between them and Will Ospreay as the fact that he is just a pure white meat babyface at this point. And he's trying to roll with his homies, but it's like, it's sort of like he, went off to like Bible camp for the summer, got saved. He came back to school and he's with his, his friends and they're trying to smoke weed and go party. And he's not about that life anymore, but he still wants to be boys. And he's trying to navigate that shit. But it was awesome to see that audience do the Ospreay chant.
And you were right. Last week you were like, dude, the Japanese crowd's going to kill any American crowd that does it. And that big pop, Ospreay. That's
why I got the green ambient light tonight. This is United Empire night.
Yeah, well, I thought this match, very, very good. Ospreay looked great, and there was a big emphasis on Ospreay and Taichi, and that closing stretch was really good. Taichi getting a roll-up for a near fall, Ospreay hitting Insiguri, Taichi hitting the dangerous backdrop suplex on Ospreay's, surgically repaired neck was a big spot there, and then Taichi following up with the Insiguri Axe Bomber for a near fall. He went for Black Mephisto. Ospreay escapes. You had Okan getting rid of Yuya to the floor. Despi and Ospreay started doing a trade, and then you had Will hitting the Os Cutter on Taichi for a great near fall, and then finishes him off with the Hidden Blade and the Stormbreaker.
I loved the interactions. I mean, everybody worked really hard in this match. Really great undercard like tag team match, and great to see Will Ospreay sort of make his in-ring return. This is only his third match. He had 2 singles matches in AEW, so this is all still fresh for him. It is funny, the idea that this guy, a year ago was talking about like, I'm going to have to go. I don't know if I'll ever be the same again. I'm going to work on my neck. Going to probably have to change my style, figure some shit out. I don't know if I'll ever be Will Ospreay like I am right now. And then as soon as he's healthy, he's like, yeah, I'm going to work dates for you guys. Plus I'm going to go back to Japan and I'm going to work like multiple dates throughout the year. And I'm going to work just as hard as I ever fucking did and do all the high flying and death defying shit that I've been doing. And nothing is going to change about my style, even though I said I was going to. It's literally the same guy. So
Yeah.
But I've seen some people comment about how great the interactions between Taichi and Will Ospreay were. And it is funny because it's like I don't mean to like gatekeep people, but this is sort of an under heralded, low key, like great series of matches that these two guys had.
Mm-hmm.
If you recall, Jeremy, like when Will was first officially making the jump from junior to heavyweight and going after the Never title, it was Taichi that he feuded with for that belt going into Wrestle Kingdom. What was that, 12?
Yeah, I think so.
With him and Ibushi. That was that the same night that Tanahashi beat Kenny Omega? 12?
That was 13.
That's okay. Yeah. So going into Wrestle Kingdom 13, he had a great match with Taichi, and that was kind of the first match with Taichi coming out of the juniors where he started to like, hey, I'm going to be work rate Taichi and like start having great matches. And then, you know, a couple of years ago in the G1, those guys had Taichi beat him like on the first night, and that match is stellar. And that's just 2 of like 4 great matches they've already had. Yeah,
they have incredible chemistry. So yeah, it was no surprise to me that when they were mixing it up, that it was great, and that was a focal point on the matchup. I also like the exchanges. Ospreay had some time in there with Yuya as well, so kind of cool getting Ospreay in there with the next generation. But yeah, United Empire get the win. Post match, you had Great Okan and Hinare laying the boots to Despy. You know, they threw you out the ring again, and Will, like you mentioned, he came back. He's not down. Like, you know, what are we doing? You know, we won the match. Like, what are we doing? Why are we doing this? Like, that's not necessary. Like, what's going on here?
He hit him with that Pete Dunne. He said, "Not the way."
Yeah, and Hinare is pretty much, this is the way we do things now.
This is how we do things now. And like, he wouldn't join in the attack, but he also wouldn't stop them. So they beat Despy down, and he's like, what did that accomplish? Like, why? We already got the W. Like, why do we have to do that?
Yeah.
I'm like, shut your bitch ass up, bro. You are the dude. 5 years ago, you turned on Okada.
Right. Which is what I thought Walker made. I think it was Walker who made a great point. He was like, when Ospreay formed the Empire, that was the mindset. It's like, we're killers. We need to take all these guys out. You know, we need to take out the legends of that whole feud with Kojima and Tenzan, and, you know, trying to end their careers. And
I think you and I are probably like the only people that are as high on that or that feud with with Tenkoji and the ladder match with him and Kojima. Like, that shit rocked. But it's like, bro, we saw you Oz Cutter, B Priestley out of the shit. Like, there's like, shut the fuck up, dude. Like, come on. But one thing I thought, aside from highlighting and setting up the rift that is growing in terms of like where the UE is and where Ospreay is, it also, this really was something that we probably didn't highlight enough in last week's episode, but this gives a huge win for this United Empire tag team, who they talked multiple times on commentary. They never officially dropped the IWGP titles when they had them, and now they're like on the hunt for them again. So this gets them into contention and, you know, gives them a big boost. Post-match backstage, very harsh criticisms from both Taichi and Yuya Uemura, where, you know, Taichi basically doubled down on all the talking points that I mentioned earlier, and really had a lot of critical words about not wanting this company to become a farm league, not wanting it to just be something where you come in, you win a couple tournaments, you win the big belt, and then you go off to greener pastures for either AEW or WWE. And talking about how there are those who probably have been critical of him, wondering about like, oh, the only reason you're still here is because you have nowhere else to go, sort of thing. And he kind of alluded to the idea that, like, now I'm not saying that he was trying to get signed by those two companies, but he made it sound like he's had other opportunities potentially, and he's turned them down. And he basically said, like, I'm not going to be like those other guys. This young generation's not going to be like those guys. We are building something here. We are reinvigorating New Japan. And he's like, and when I leave this company, I will never wrestle again. So I don't know if he'll keep that same energy. You know, he's probably, pro wrestlers are liars, but basically saying he's not leaving, or when he does, he's done. Like, his heart and soul's with the company. And then Yuya, had some pretty harsh words about Ospreay being like, dog, I know you won the title and everything, but you're an outsider. Like,
yeah,
like basically saying like, he doesn't go here.
right. You know, Ospreay responding on Twitter being like, dude, I was in the company for a longer time that you've been in so far. So yeah, it's some interesting story elements there. And then also backstage with UE, Ospreay saying he wanted a challenge for the never 6-man titles, and that is now official for the Wrestling Dontaku tour. Ospreay, Hanare, and Okan will be challenging Bishamon and Boltin Oleg for those titles.
Yeah, so that will. It's very, very, very interesting. It's also interesting how some of these dates he's keeping, they don't line up with some of the rumors and talking points that myself and others had kind of heard. Mm-hmm. And it's actually, he's working more than we sort of anticipated. The last time we saw like a New Japan guy like work this prevalently in the company was like Mox.
Yeah.
Several years ago.
And speaking of the never openweight 6-man titles, that's the next matchup here with Bishamon and Boltin retaining and defeating the House of Torture team of Chase Owens, Ren Narita, and Yujiro Takahashi, with Yoshihashi and Goto doing the Shoto on Yujiro to get the win for the team.
This match was really good. House of Torture, even though they still did some underhanded things, they pretty much like kept that stuff at bay. I think they exhausted all of the schlop the night prior and didn't have as much of that to I think there's like a meter that gets built up and how often they can pull out all those gimmicks, and you know, they spent it all the night prior. But I loved Oleg Boltin manhandling Narita. And one of the funny things that you notice is like what do they call the thing where he puts them in the gut wrench and, you know, puts them side to side?
The Boltin shake.
Yeah, the Boltin shake. So it's like when there's a really big guy, he might Boltin shake them once, twice, maybe 3 times at most. But like when it's a little guy, small boy,
yes,
you know, just all day. And he got Narita. Yeah, he got Narita's skinny, fat skinny ass up there, and throwing that man around with ease. And he's like, I could do this all day.
Yeah, he also did a nice pop-up verdict, which I still think somebody please tell Boltin the verdict is a better finish. Like, it looks so, because he does it just like Brock did in 02. Throw them up there, catch them, throw them, they're spinning in the air, they fall. Like, it's such a great looking move.
I think it's a little too late for him to go back. There probably would be a way for him to get, like, he'd kind of have to kind of like quietly stop using the move a little bit, and then eventually build back up to it and reintroduce it and beat some people, and then it'd be like, oh shit, like that's his finish now. But I don't think he's going back, honestly.
Yeah.
One thing though, Jeremy, I don't want to, like, I'm not trying to drum up a narrative here on my own. You know, like I think this is an anomaly. I don't think it's leading to anything, but like, tell me why Yujiro Takahashi was the hardest fucking worker in this match in the MVP here.
Bro, I don't know what's gotten into that man, but that man, he got that huge pop against Takeshita. He's like, oh, maybe if I actually work hard, I can get over again.
This dude's working his ass off to the best of his ability. Like, I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, he's on the come up, but like, yeah. Well, fucking Yujiro working hard, bro.
Yeah, part of me is like, I wonder if there's like an underlying babyface turn coming. Because remember last year they had like the Purge Nights thing, and like Evil and Yujiro was kind of the main event, and Evil was kind of like going against him, and there were some issues there. And then we saw Umino trying to bring him back to the light with the whole baseball stuff. Then he had the big Takeshita match. So it's like, have they been planting seeds that like eventually this man's going to get tired of the slop and come back to Hantai?
Stiff Jeremy, laying out the groundwork. Part of me kind of wonders, like, okay, Tanahashi's gone, and obviously Tiger Mask is leaving, and we're getting to that point where it's like, who's really left? And Kojima and Nagata basically are extreme part-timers. They work a lot of dates outside of the company. Makabe is barely around, and then Tenzan, who knows if he'll ever even wrestle again. Like, they might do a retirement for him, but who knows? So I think we're getting to that point where like dad roles for heavyweights are probably going to open up. And you have to imagine a guy like Yujiro's like probably primed to maybe enter that role, except for the big difference there is all the third generation dads that were like at the top, they were all like former world champions and aces of the company. And some of these other guys that are behind them are maybe not as accomplished, you know, so they don't have the same cachet, but I do wonder what they're doing with that.
Yeah. So that was that. And
post match, Oleg did get on the mic and basically said like, I couldn't understand, but I think he said something like, I'm coming for your ass, you know, and fuck you. And I'm taking that belt basically.
Yeah. Something else that I like that Oleg did in the match, you know, he's been starting to use the torture rack.
Oh, you know what? Okay. So I do like that he's used, they're calling it the Argentine backbreaker. So that's cool. But, here's one thing I didn't necessarily love, Jeremy, and this is just me being a stickler, but they hit the Shoto and the referee counts the pinfall. And at the same time as this is taking place, like you said, he's got Narita in the torture rack and he's getting the visual tap out. Narita is tapping, chapping. And then, but part of me sort of like, should the referee be counting the pinfall if there are that many, you know, illegals in the ring? Like, what the fuck are we doing?
Bro, it's New Japan. There's no tag rules.
I guess I shouldn't complain because there are bigger issues when it comes to officiating in this company, that this is like at the bottom of the heap. But there's a part of me that's like, bro, you can't get a legal pinfall when there's 3 other dudes who are not like supposed to be in the ring at that time. Like, all right, whatever, I guess.
Yeah. So following that, we had NJPW World Television title match. The Alpha, Konosuke Takeshita, and the Roughneck Shota Umino wrestled to a 15-minute time limit draw. We talked about last week as this being a potential finish with Warren to protect both of these guys. And unfortunately, that's the route they went with the time limit draw.
Yeah, there was a press conference the day prior to this event, and Shota Umino basically talked about how the original purpose of the title was to highlight young talents and to highlight them in smaller cities and prefectures that don't normally get title matches. And he kind of questioned, if Takeshita's the champion and he's not on the tours and he's not necessarily like a young guy, how is there a chance that the purpose and relevancy of the title just kind of goes by the wayside? And essentially said that his vision, should he win the title, is to start facing the younger talents, those who are under 30. And he even said, like, I'd go, and this is where I kind of knew he wasn't winning the match. Not that I thought he was going to, but he's like, I would go ahead and I would defend that belt every night on every tour. I don't give a fuck. And that's when I was like, all right, bro, you're not going to win.
Yeah.
But Takeshita, on the other hand, basically, you know, his vision is like him being a champion and traveling across all these different countries across the world brings a higher like profile and relevancy to the title. And he says that he's kind of his idea, which is a little bit of a different vision, is like more of the open challenges that he's done. And he doesn't care whether it's young wrestlers or legends. And he even named a couple guys that he wanted to wrestle, which was like, he named Kojima, Yuji Nagata, and Makabe. And I was like, bro, like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, but you know, there's clearly a difference of philosophy and agenda when it comes to how they want to treat the title. But that essentially was neither here nor, because they went to the draw. Umino, the one time they wrestled, took over 28 minutes last year in the G1 to beat this guy. That was the longest block play match of the entire tournament. So even with that, I was a little bit like, how's he going to get rid of this dude in sub 15 minutes? And in fact, like, if we're being technical, Takeshita took longer than 15 minutes to even win the belt. Like, he went to a draw with ELP and then had to ask for 5, or, you know, basically be gifted 5 more minutes on top of that. Mm-hmm. And that was something he said during the press conference was, you know, rules are rules. And if we go the 15, I'm not going to be asking for extra time. I'm like, of course you're not going to be asking for extra time. Because
you're smart,
bro. You're the champion. Why would you're not ELP. Like, you know, just gifting your shit away. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I thought the match was really good. From the bell, they kind of started swinging, had a nice little sequence there that led to Umino starting to work on the knee, using the STF to get near submission. Then Takeshita started working the arm, did the divorce court arm breaker, and started doing some hammer locks and stuff like that. And then it's kind of some more back and forth, and kind of as time's running down, they're hitting some of their bigger moves and trying to get some big near falls. So towards the end here, Takeshita, he snaps Shota's arm across the rope. Umino was able to hit a pop-up powerbomb for that. Takeshita hits the Blue Thunder for a near fall, goes for the power drive knee. Umino catches it. Konosuke hits a forearm strike, suplex for a near fall, big clothesline from Umino, hard clothesline from Takeshita. Then they start exchanging clotheslines. Umino with a half nothing suplex. Takeshita pops up, hits an exploder. Umino pops up, and they start trading forearms. And Takeshita goes for Raging Fire. Umino blocks it. Umino hits a Poison Rana, which looked really nasty. I don't think Takeshita.
But he didn't get all of that Poison Rana. Like, he landed on his back.
Yeah, I
kind of was able to suspend my disbelief a little bit, because I'm like, okay, Takeshita didn't land on his head, but we've seen guys that, like, if they get hit with like the what's the move where they put the knees in the back and pull them back?
Backstabber.
Yeah, like the backstabber. And I'm like, he still took a bump, so it's whatever. Plus, it's late in the match, so. Yeah,
then they do a James Boyd spot, double clothesline. Umino's calling over for the cover, and then we get the 15-minute bell.
Yeah, I mean, essentially the big story of the match here was, like you said, they were rushing at the beginning, but then it broke down into Takeshita says, I'm going to focus on your arm because I know you like to lariat, so fuck your arm. I'm going to focus on that. And then and then Umino being like, well, I'm the master of the DDT, so fuck your neck and shoulder. I'm going to drop you on your head multiple times. There was a really nasty spinning DDT off the apron to the outside that I thought was pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Did you notice Takeshita did the Okada sequence where he big booted him over the outside barricade and then tried to do the draping DDT?
Yeah.
Which I'm like, are you just taking those moves because the guy's not in the company anymore? Or are you trying to work a shoot, brother?
Well, they're still building heat between Okada and Takeshita, and they're fighting over Kyle Fletcher. There's still issues. Takeshita's still in Don Callis' family, so they're still building that program.
Little bit of a wink there, but one thing that I didn't love was the idea that it's a 15-minute time limit. I didn't love Takeshita kind of slowing the pace down, working the arm, and kind of dragging out the clock. Maybe that is a smart thing from a veteran, but it also felt a little bit like sort of expect that from a heel who's trying to survive a guy. I don't see Takeshita as that, but it is neither here nor. I just don't know from a psychology standpoint that that's the best thing to be doing. It just feels like filling time. And then the match itself was, one thing too is he stole the second chapter from Umino to kind of pay him back for stealing the Raging Fire, the show prior to that. But down the stretch, Umino was near, potentially attempting a pinfall victory over Takeshita, but it also was like he didn't hit him with the finisher.
Right.
I don't know that had he gotten on top of him for, to make the cover, that he even would have won off of that giant lariat. Maybe not. And then, I've said this before, if you're going to do a time limit draw, I'm of the opinion that when the clock is counting down, that you need to be near the finish so that it almost looks like you would have won, but the time expired and it doesn't happen. And oftentimes in New Japan, and we've seen this in AEW too, is like they'll get close and then I don't know, the timing's just off and they never get there to get that dramatic near finish. And then the clock just expires and both guys are laid out. And I'm like, it's a little bit like if you're doing the time limit draw, and you're already protecting the champion, you should give the visual near finish to the challenger. And they still skirt away from that. It's like they don't want to make the champion look weak. So they just kind of, do this wishy-washy thing at the end. Plus, I mean, I don't know. We don't have to get into it, but how many fucking time limit draws are they going to do with this title?
Right. Yeah. I think it would have been some great rehab for Umino, is coming off of losing a New Japan Cup, hits the second chapter, goes for the cover, 1, 2, time expires, and it's like, all right, well, had there been, a couple more seconds, Umino would have won. That leaves the door open in the future for a rematch. Takeshia's still protected. He doesn't get pinned. So, yeah, I think that could have helped build Umino up. And then here the post match.
You know what I would have preferred is he puts him in the fucking Boston Crab.
Oh,
same move that Tsuji did, because then that's even more like, would he have gotten out of it, or would Tsuji, being a dojo boy, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
that's what I would have booked, but I'm not the booker.
Post match, we had a masked man in a suit that came out and distracted Takeshita, which allowed Lone Star Outlaw Chase Owens to jump Takeshita and start putting the boots to him. And then Umino surprisingly comes back and makes a save. And it seems like Umino and Takeshita have some kind of alliance now. And Chase Owens has staked his claim for a TV title shot. And I wonder, what are we doing here? Why are we wasting Takeshita dates on Chase Owens?
I don't know. I don't agree with it whatsoever. I think it's pretty clear. I don't have this confirmed. I've seen some speculation. I don't know, who knows, but this masked man, it could be anybody, obviously, but the way that he stood on the apron and his hands, the way they dangled on the ropes and they went like limp over the ropes, I'm like, oh, that's Sonata. Sonata's the only person I know in the world that stands on the ropes with his hands that way. Now, I don't know for sure it is him, but I'm like 95% certain that that's Sonata right there.
Yeah.
So if they were trying to conceal it, maybe he shouldn't have done that.
Yeah. We have lots of questions here. Human_Crest6933 says, where do you see Shota Umino before G1?
I mean, honestly, there's not much really. If you think about the timeline of things, we got Super Juniors and then you got Dominion. So I assume he'll probably be involved in some sort of like singles feud of some sort. Maybe he'll have like a big tag team or singles match. I know this isn't like a definitive answer, like he's going to feud with this guy, but I don't think they have to do much because the G1 is the time that he's going to ramp up. And until then, I think he's going to kind of take a back seat like most of the heavyweights will, because it's Super Junior season.
Yeah, I feel like he's going to be on this little like team with Takeshita side quest until it's time to pull a trigger and get him cooking for G1.
Oh, you think him and Takeshita will team again?
Maybe. I mean, if they win their tag team match on the Dontaku tour, that might set them up to.
I haven't looked at those dates. I peeked at them and then I didn't do a deep dive into them. So they are going to tag together.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Next question here from Skywalker 3030. Do you believe that the perception that Takeshita has adjusted his in-ring style, slower pace and less bombastic strikes, especially in his first half of matches, is warranted or fair? And if you think it's warranted, is this change a negative or a positive?
I don't think that I've analyzed his match structure enough to say one way or the other. I do think that there's probably a difference between the style of match that he has on say TV in AEW than what I see him do in New Japan. And maybe now that you're saying it, there probably is an aspect of him taking on a more New Japan house style, big match layout. But I don't know. I don't notice that big. It's not like a super huge difference to me.
Yeah, and I feel it's very similar to his AEW pay-per-view structure. I feel like he does try to slow things down in the beginning, and then they kind of build up, and he does kind of the more fast sequence. So I don't know if that's, I didn't see a ton of him before AEW, so I don't know if that's a transition kind of thing he learned while being in AEW, or for whatever reason he decided to make that change. I'm not quite sure yet what the catalyst for that would have been.
I mean, in terms of New Japan, the biggest difference, if this is a real thing that you could probably point to, is what was his structure and style of work in his first G1 versus what he's doing today.
Yeah.
Is there a big difference? And maybe there is, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Plus, I also think G1s are work from a kayfabe perspective, time limit standpoint. They're work different than, once a guy. I don't know that this is very different from what he was doing when he was never champion. Let's just say that.
Yeah. Siamese Twin Cobra says, why is Chase Owens?
I don't know, bro. I have no interest in Chase Owens these days.
Yeah. Last question, 7252. Sorry to Emily for this question, but is Shota a hoe? You may say Yo is a hoe, but he at least won multiple gold in his career. After the beatdown where he saved Takeshita, do you see a heel turn incoming for Shota if the plan is for him to challenge Takeshita at Dominion, or just a story of him finally winning singles gold?
I mean, I've said this before on the show, and I'm probably just going to keep hammering this point. I fully believe that Shota Umino, and I've gotten myself in trouble with this in the past. I marry myself to a concept of a future booking idea that I think is going to play out. And sometimes I'm right, but more often than not, I'm wrong. But I feel strongly that he is going into the G1 and he's going to win it this year. And in order for that story to make sense and play out properly, he needs to not win any major titles or tournaments before then. So yeah, they might do the Takeshita match again before G1. And in fact, maybe that's at Dominion. Maybe they do the rematch, but I kind of think that he needs to lose again, suffer another big setback before the redemption arc during the G1.
Yeah, and I do think it's an interesting wrinkle of him teaming with Takeshita, maybe accept him. Obviously Takeshita has been doing a very slow burn babyface turn in AEW, and I wonder if this is their way of using Umino to kind of get like the New Japan Hantai stamp of approval to kind of get the fans to kind of be like, oh, well, if a Hantai guy's accepting Takeshita, maybe we can too. And if this is part of a bigger plan to turn Takeshita face also in New Japan.
Another concept that is on the table, I don't know if too many people have thought of this. I haven't heard it. It's just popping into my head. But if they are going to team together, maybe where this is leading is by Dominion, they're contesting for the tag team titles, because that would be a really big on paper match to do KOB versus Takeshita Umino. And that's an opportunity for them to, again, not win the titles and him suffer another major, disappointment on a big stage going into G1. And I feel like that could be a great way to go if they, because KOB is kind of already starting to run through, the entire field.
Yeah.
They might need a new challenger soon.
Yeah. All right. That was the last question there. So we'll go on to the IWGP Heavyweight Tag Team Title match. Speaking of KOB, the Knockout Brothers, Oscar and Yuto Ice, defeating the TMDK team of Roy Oiwa and Zack Sabre Jr., with Yuto Ice using the Cruella kick on Oiwa.
Yeah, so he had defeated Oiwa with the Cruella kick during the Road to, leading into this match. And then there was the press conference the day prior to this. Oiwa basically made a promise that he was going to stretch this guy, that he hates him, and that he was not only going to make him tap out, but he was going to make him say that he was a better professional wrestler and a better man than Yuto Ice is. So no love lost between those two guys. Zach basically talked about his time during the pandemic, trying to bolster the tag team division, and how he's back and ready to reclaim, the top of the mountain when it comes to those belts. And he talked about how, like, when they were going for the belts earlier in their iteration, him and Oiwa, the whole entire intention was to get gold for Oiwa, but now he's doing it for himself. And he talked about how, like, when he was motivated to win the IWGP the year prior, he broke Goto's arm and was willing to do the exact same thing to both Ice and or Oscar. On the other hand, KOB, they pretty much were like dismissing these guys. There was a lot of heat with Yuto Ice basically saying how much he hates, Oiwa and everything like that. And, Oscar reminding everybody that, like, they beat these guys twice already. Nothing has changed. These guys haven't changed up their game plan. There's no reason to think that they would actually be able to defeat them at this point. And, just basically saying that once they beat them for a third time, they're going back to the bottom of the pecking order, and that's it for TMDK. They're done.
Yeah.
And now KOB is going to move on. And that's exactly what happened here.
Yeah. And match rock, and obviously, like you mentioned, a big part of this match really played down between Yuto Ice and Oiwa until there was a long stretch towards the end where they were kind of the highlight of the match, and those two were almost kind of turned into a singles match at that point with Oscar and Sabre kind of laid out on the outside, and then you have that spot where Oiwa does like a arm breaker type maneuver where he essentially dislocates Yuto Ice's elbow.
You know what he was doing was like dragon screws to the arm.
Yeah.
Which was sick.
Yeah, and so they did a spot where he quote-unquote popped the elbow out of place, and then Ice is trying to knock the elbow back in place, and then Oi was just continuing to attack the arm, and I love Charlton's commentary. He's like, Ice is trying to knock his elbow back in by hitting Oiwa's head, and so like, yeah, he had to throw the elbow, and he's trying to knock the elbow back in by throwing elbow strikes, which was an interesting tactic there. But yeah, just super hard hitting, some really great near falls there. And, I thought this was Oiwa's moment. I was like, all right, this guy's got one arm now, and Oiwa's, hitting all the big moves. And there was a spot where, Zach eventually got the guillotine on Oscar on the outside. He's like, Oiwa, now's your time. Get your ass in gear. Finish him.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, this is it. Like, he's gonna, hit that man with the grip.
The early portions of the match really focused on TMDK trying to isolate their opponents and get the fast tags in and out. And while they weren't necessarily heels, mind you, they kind of did a little bit of the, like, when Bret Hart would be a babyface against another babyface, and although with him, he would lean even more into the heelish tendencies. They didn't quite do that, but they definitely worked in a style of like, we're cutting you guys off and we're going to do extended heat sequences. And it over time built to the crowd who already like KOB. They're already popular, but lending their support more to them so that they could like see them being resilient, see them, put their toughness on display. They focused heavily on Yuto Ice's arms, which like his knees are all taped up, his shoulder, his arm. That was a huge story of the match. Mm-hmm. But once Oscar got into the ring, it became TMDK picking his leg apart, his knee, and him having to like basically focus on his power and toughness to like overcome those dudes. But it was constantly TMDK tagging out and isolating those guys. KOB didn't tag in very many times throughout the entirety of the match. But then, like you said, the long extended period between Yuto Ice and Oiwa, which makes sense because the most heat leading into this match was between them. The counter philosophies of like, Yuto Ice believing that wrestling is a fight. The strongest fighters come from pro wrestling, and he wants to knock people's blocks off. Whereas Oiwa believes it's sporting, and he's totally fine beating somebody with like a catch wrestling move. Yeah.
Well, it's like, yeah, the marquee says pro wrestling, like not fighting. Yeah. Like, I'm going to use a wrestling hold to beat you.
And the drama that was on display during the entire course of their time together, Oiwa really brutalized Yuto Ice in this match and took his arm away. And some of the work that he was doing on that arm reminded me heavily of some of the stuff I've seen from Tanahashi against like Nakamura and others, where it's like he's elbowing and uppercutting and elbowing and uppercutting. And like he got to a point where like the referee's trying to pull him off and he's throwing Marty Asami off and like starting to like really go to a dark place. And it's like Ice has pushed him to that point. But like you mentioned, after all of the near falls, the back and forths, like Yuto Ice kicked out of everything. He kicked out of a Zack driver. He kicked out of
the closing was great. So the Zack comes back in. He hits the Zack driver, and then Oiwa does the Chaos Theory German suplex, which I'm like, oh, that has to be it. But then you had Oscar came in, made the save, great near fall there, and then Oiwa did a head capture suplex on Yuto Ice, but then Yuto Ice was eventually able to come back, hit their Kuela, and get the win there. And so, yeah, I thought Yuto Ice, they did a great job. I don't know if this was their plan or not, because I feel like they were trying to get some shine on Oiwa, but that whole sequence, like you mentioned, really got the crowd behind Yuto Ice, and you had the crowd, chanting for Yuto that whole time, and it's like, Oiwa's the one that I feel like is supposed to be the babyface guy that they're trying to get behind, but then now this crowd just, rallying and getting behind Yuto. They see him fighting through dislocated elbow and doing all these big near falls, and we're essentially winning the match with one arm, and kind of backing up everything he says.
I don't think that was a miscalculation. I think that was intentional. I think they knew that KOB was going to be the more popular team, and that it was an opportunity to have TMDK. They didn't like turn heel, but
Right.
to work towards that, to fit that mold, to give the shine, essentially from a crowd perspective to Yuta Ice. And I think it worked. The only one drawback about this match that I have is I felt like Yuta Ice kind of got Oiwa out of there a little quick.
Mhm.
On the one hand, the Cruella, which is essentially the Baisaku knee, very effective and it's a great finish. But for how many times he got nearly stopped, and even Oscar almost got tapped out a couple times, like very deep submission holds from Zach. I guess the only way that I can rationalize the way he finished Oiwa was that Oiwa maybe perhaps punched himself out and was exhausted, and then just got caught down the stretch with some of those amazing kicks, because Ice did have to stop throwing with the arm and he had to start throwing knees and kicks to accommodate. But I felt like he kind of just like he hit him with the Bombaclat knee. Oh, the Bombaclat response from the audience. That's the biggest it's ever been.
Yeah, that was a big pop. Yeah.
But he hit him with the Bombaclat. He hit him with the Cruella, and it was like basically done. And I'm like, I don't know. For how many times he kicked out of near falls, I kind of felt like Oiwa should have got at least one last grasp of like, I'm not fucking going away either. But he didn't. He kind of just got put away.
Yeah.
I don't know. And it could have been that they were running up on time. I don't know.
Maybe, yeah. I feel like that kind of hurt Oiwa a little bit. Like this man, essentially is getting beat by a guy with one arm after all the damage that Oiwa was giving him. It was like, damn, you couldn't put this guy away with one arm. But I get what they were trying to do. And personally, I like the New Year's Dash match better than this match. But I know
what's funny is like I couldn't remember because we saw it live. It's hard for me to remember everything, but I felt as just a gut reaction, maybe I felt the same way. Although the stuff between Oiwa and Ice I felt was better as a whole in this match. Yeah. As a complete match, I think I might have liked New Year's Dash more. But I think that the general perception is no, that this is the better match.
Yeah. In post match, we had Knockout Brothers say called out Bishamon as the next challengers because they're talking about how they clean out the division and who's left, and so they call out Bishamon. But then Okan and Hinare come out and they kind of stake their claim, but then Bishamon eventually does come out, and they set up a scenario now where on the Dontaku tour there was going to be Bishamon versus Hinare and Okan, and the winners will get Knockout Brothers at Wrestling Red Zone.
When United Empire came out and they were wearing suits, I was like, oh, these dudes, Callum Newman's going to win this fucking shit because they're wearing the suits already. They're about to come out as a whole group with the black and white. So,
yeah. Then some questions here. Compass Fix 8089. Without the best tag match in years. Also, do you think Yuta Ice vs. Oiwa would be a good Tokyo Dome main event in a few years?
I mean, I don't know. That's it possibly. They got so many young guys. It's hard to project where anyone is going to be in terms of like Tokyo Dome contention. But I thought the match is incredible, but it's one in a series of incredible tag matches in just this company, in just this calendar year alone. I will say this, Jeremy, we've never officially been able to pull the trigger on it. We've gotten close a couple times with like Bucks, Golden Ace, Techers, but there's never been a time where it's made the final cut for one reason or another. But we've always said if a tag team did enough in the year, they would be nominated for Wrestler of the Year as an act. And it's people been on track and just never happened. If we were to stop today and just do the awards for this year right now, Knockout Brothers are the Wrestler of the Year in New Japan Pro Wrestling based on everything that they've accomplished. And even if they lost this match just with how good it was, they would still be Wrestler of the Year right now.
Yeah. Yeah. You hear the reactions, you see the matches, like KLB's the hot stuff right now. And everything they touch is touched to goal. And, he talked about, is this the best tag match? Well, it's like, it's your preference. Like the Umino Uemura matches were great. The New Year's Dash match was great. Like everything Knockout Brothers has been doing is great. And then
World Tag League.
Yeah, the World Tag League was great. And then also too, tag team wrestling in general, you look at the junior side, like talked about earlier, the Robbie X, Ishimori, Ichiban Sweet Boy stuff has been great as well. So I feel like there's a lot of great tag team wrestling happening in New Japan right now. Next question from Resolve Good. At this point, I'm thinking KOB should just hold the titles forever. How in the world can they book them to lose and to whom? Fale and Chase?
You know, one thing I noticed during the match, and this is the closest, we've never in the entire history of the show ever been shouted out on New Japan World. And like, I've always like been like, be pretty fucking cool if someone said us, you know, but it's never happened. The closest we got during this match was what I believe was a direct reference to this show from Chris Charlton, because he mentioned a talking point that we've had now. I'm sure maybe perhaps there's other people that have said this point, but I haven't heard it, but I know we definitely talked about it, which is comparing the run of Knockout Brothers to Bad Intentions. Mm-hmm. And what would basically need to happen in order for them to match them in terms of days and title defenses. And I heard Chris Charlton talk about like, yeah, there's people that discuss New Japan out there that have brought up this point, and it's a catch-all. I'm sure maybe there's other people, but I know we're one of them. So I felt a little bit like we're just a degree from being announced, from being named on us NJPW World. But yeah, should they hold the titles forever? No, but I would love for it to be something where it's like, Bad Intentions, we're coming for your shit. Fuck you, Carl.
Right.
Fuck you, Albert.
this generation just trying to break all the records. Yeah, I mean, there's two. I mean, Bishamon and Hanare and Okan, I think, are two very believable teams that could beat them. So maybe, yeah, the winner of that could potentially beat them. Yeah, outside of that, I mean, if it's not one of those two teams, yeah, I don't know who else you throw at them.
Well, here's the beautiful thing about what's going on. We, years ago, when we were in the middle of pandemic wrestling, and Tanahashi and Ibushi were going for the belts, and you and I remember a roundtable, I, and Chris Samsa having an in-depth discussion about what revitalizing the tag team titles, how that could reflect and affect the entirety of the promotion. And we're getting to a point now where it's like KOB basically is running through almost the entirety of the tag division, but there are still teams that exist. So there is a healthy scene. We're starting to see these situations like this one, and like the one with Uemura and Umino when they faced off against Ishii and Taichi, where it's like number one contender matches are starting to happen. They're building a division underneath them. But what makes it even more powerful is that with the amount of young stars that they have, and there's only so many spots, and up until now, Tsuji's been hogging the top two belts. How do you build a credible spot for guys that are not in the mix? And when you make this title as prestigious as it is, and it's as high up on the card as it is, it becomes something where a guy, former champions like Goto and Zack Sabre Jr. and potentially Shingo can be in tag teams and contend for the belts, or other guys like Oleg Boltin, Takeshita, Umino, what have you, maybe even potentially when Will Ospreay and Callum link back up. You have a believable team that can stand at the top of the marquee against top stars and give the top stars another thing that they actually want to go after. The tag team titles are not just an afterthought. They're actually a tip top prize in the company. Mm-hmm. And that makes working in New Japan as a whole, just the possibilities are so much wider than when this is just a throwaway belt and it's on like Fale and Owens,
Yeah. Next question here from Stunning Sand 1998. I think Akira should join the Knockout Brothers, a German, Italy, Japan alliance with print money. What do you think?
Nope.
Yeah, I don't see that. Death Triangle 720 says, is KOB the best tag team the company's had in the last decade?
Possibly. I mean, it depends on how you, in terms of like acclaim and notoriety and excitement. Yeah. In terms of the work, I don't know about that one. I don't know about that one, big dog.
There's some other contenders. Yeah.
There's a lot of great tag teams that have been here, especially not even just in the heavyweights. You go to those junior tag teams, it gets a little tough, but
then MJ says, do you really want to ever take the titles off KOB? In what instance will it make sense for them to drop the titles?
Honestly, with what they've accomplished, they could easily drop the belts at any time now and be totally fine.
Yeah, they're made.
They're made. So it's fine if they were to drop the titles. Me personally, as like a stats person, I love the idea, or like records, I should say more so. I love the idea of them like going for, the all-time records and breaking that shit.
Yeah. And then last question here from Les Commission 7252 says the KOB and TMDK tag team title match is so far my match of the year, ahead of Tanahashi retirement match of the Dome earlier this year. Are KOB the most over duo than anyone in New Japan currently, that is singles or tag?
They're up there. I mean, I can't say for sure they're the most over, but I mean, the responses they're getting are immense and they're on the right track. So that's really awesome.
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely getting a lot of reaction. There's a lot of fanfare about them. It seems like their merch is selling well. So yeah, they're definitely super over. And yeah, it seems like a lot of people really, really love this match and have it as their match of the year. All right, well, that's going to take us now to the main event, the IWGP Heavyweight title match. Make way for the Prince, kiss the crown. Callum Newman defeats the Gene Blast Yota Tsuji in 24 minutes and 17 seconds with his new make way finisher.
In the press conference leading into this, Tsuji basically, talked about how this guy's challenging at 23 and he himself hadn't even debuted till 24. And while he had been in, the UK on his excursion, this was a young kid that was very, and actually some of this was from the interview that he did, but he was a young kid that was very athletic and, obviously talented, was like an Osprey clone, but in his opinion wasn't a kid that liked to get hit hard. And he's overcome adversity and now he's here. And it's like, there's this whole new generation of guys that are trying to chase after Tsuji. And he himself didn't even feel like up until now, he's fully cemented as the guy. But to be the guy, you have to like turn back the challenge of any newcomer that's coming into the company to try and take your spot. And on the other hand, Newman was extremely braggadocious, looking past Tsuji, just like he's been in all of the press conferences all tour, going back to New Japan Cup, and basically said like for the entirety of his career, he's been told he wasn't ready, and he's continued to surpass the expectations of his doubters and things like that. And he keeps backing up his words. And this isn't going to be any different of a situation, and almost kind of said that Tsuji's kind of had everything handed to him and he has had to work to get to this spot as an outsider, and is he's going to break the records and become like the generational leader that Tsuji thinks he is. Callum's going to prove to everybody that he is the guy, and like he's going to carry the company on his back, and it's not going to be Tsuji, and I don't know, as of right now, like it's kind of playing out that way. Callum comes out, the entire United Empire, they're all suited up with him, everybody that's in the group right now, which I guess that means CJP and Gideon Gray. Sorry guys, not Templario. Sorry, not part of it.
Andrade,
but Andrade. But all these guys are suited up, and Osprey's in the corner coaching Callum while the rest of the group is behind the barricade, which I thought was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And then we saw the match kind of unfold from there, which it was a big fight feel in Ryogoku.
Yeah, and I love a lot of the presentation stuff with this match. So you touched on one thing, the whole United Empire coming out in all suits, very reminiscent of times when like Bullet Club would come out all together with like Kenny or Jay White or AJ. So that was kind of a cool sight to see, and them all kind of getting behind Callum. Also love that they finally brought the roll call video back, the championship roll call. So we got that and showing the champions and including the World Heavyweight Champions and all that stuff. So that was another great touch. And then, they've been doing the whole thing where Tanahashi kind of does like the official proclamation for title matches ahead of time. So I thought that adds some gravitas to it. And they did like the in-ring, announcements with both guys in the ring. So overall, there's a lot working for this match as far as the presentation and making it feel big and special. And then overall, the match was just really, really great. I thought these guys had great chemistry. Beginning of the match, we saw them kind of going for kind of a quick sequence, and then that led into kind of like the Jay White-ism of Callum taking the break, powdering, and trying to get things back under the control. There were several points in the match where Newman was going for Ospreay maneuvers, and they weren't always working out. There were several times he was going for the Os cutter and didn't work. There was a great spot from Tsuji where he blocked a apron Os cutter and did a curb stomp off the apron to the floor, which was a great spot. And Ospreay ran over and was checking on Callum Newman. And yeah, there was so many great spots here.
Leading up to that spot, it was very much a back and forth affair, but it felt like Callum Newman, his control of being able to target the back and the taped up shoulder of Tsuji and work kicks and knees really like slowed the champion down and put him in like a precarious position. Mm-hmm. And anytime Tsuji tried to like get combos going, he wasn't able to match the speed of Callum. And another thing too is Callum had better kicks, maybe not better strikes, but because of his like football background as like a soccer player, his kicks were way more effective than Tsuji's. So Tsuji was like kind of in trouble until that point. Like once they got to the apron and he went for that Oz cutter, he got cut off and then he got, curb stomped to the ground. And then it was like, oh shit, that's like a fatal error, game changer. And that was kind of what led into Tsuji taking back control of the match and basically putting Callum in serious trouble where like he almost lost the match several times.
Yeah, started hitting big moves, which eventually led to Tsuji going for the Marlowe Crash and ended up hitting Red Shoes Uno, which got the ref bump there. And that's when Newman, signaled for Zane J to bring a chair in. We saw all through New Japan Cup, Zane J was seconding Callum and was the one to kind of help him win the matches. So we saw that, and that's when Ospreay blocked the chair. And as what are you doing? Pretty much kind of shoot off Zane J. But Newman would grab a chair, and then Ospreay grabbed it again. He's like, please don't do this, mate. Don't do it. Like, do the right way.
I'm begging you. You can beat him. Trust me.
Do it on your own.
Don't
do it the right way.
and commentaries like 5 years ago, this dude would have taken the chair. Speaking of Ospreay, and he would have brained this dude, and now he's begging, his underling to please don't do it this way. It's like,
yeah, which
bitch.
That almost cost Callum the match because he turned around, he ate a hidden blade from Tsuji. Tsuji hit the Gene Blast, but we still had no ref. Then second ref, I believe it was Asami, came out. Yota once again goes for Gene Blast, but Callum hits the hidden blade this time, which leads to a double down. And then they're exchanging some more spots. We had a German from Tsuji, a Destroyer, and then a short-range Gene Blast for a near fall. Getting into a 20-minute time point, Newman hits the Excalibur, and they're both down. Tsuji hitting a Tornado DDT, Marlowe Crash for a great near fall. Tsuji does the alley-oop and a pump handle side slam. So they're just kind of going back and forth, and then the ref got caught in the middle, which allowed Callum to hit a low blow. Hits the make way, and 1, 2, 3. Callum Newman is the new and youngest IWGP Heavyweight Champion.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the records, and it's like this guy was the youngest challenger for this title. He was the youngest, tag team champion in the company's history, the youngest New Japan Cup winner. Now he's the youngest IWGP champion. I was having a conversation with Rich a few weeks ago, and he's like, uh-oh, you know what that means when a company starts deciding it's time to break glass and start, erasing the old records, it means, shit's not on the up and up, they gotta, but even with that being the case, one thing that I thought was interesting is all throughout the tournament, they were doing that spot with Zane J pushing in during New Japan Cup where they would distract the ref and throw in the chair and everything like that. But I forgot about the other aspect of how he's been winning his matches, which is pushing guys into the ref, low blowing them, and then hitting his finish. Mm-hmm. And he totally went for that. There was some other like underhanded things he did where it's like, there's one point where he pretended like, hit me. And he's sticking his chin out. And then Tsuji tries to go for it, and he's like, bah! So this guy was not playing by the rules, but he there's no denying that. I mean, like this was, I don't want to say it was clean, but he kicked out of 2 Gene Blasts, you know, he endured almost everything Tsuji had to offer him. Yeah, he tried to cheat in the one spot and then ended up cheating. Like, there's enough there to be like, Tsuji was kind of, you know, done wrong, and this guy was underhanded and didn't win it the right way, but fairly close to being clean.
Yeah,
enough to be
as clean as you can get. Yeah.
And you know, a lot of people were shocked about this, but honestly, Jeremy, as the time approached, once we got to the show, I know last week I think I predicted Newman would win. I've been predicting it. And then by the time the show was happening, there was just so many signs with the Shingo stuff and with, you know, Yui and their suits and Osprey on the card where I was like, I feel pretty confident that Tsuji is laying down. And that's what happened.
Yeah, like I was saying, when I watched that Road 2 show and I started seeing stuff, I'm just like, yeah, I just get that. I don't know, I get that feeling like this man just looks like a man that's about to win the belt. And incredible new gear that he had, entrance gear, and then the long boys. Like, this guy just looked like a complete star. And yeah, I think he looks great with the belt.
Hey, shout out to Tsuji not coming in with the boo-boo face, knowing he's going to lose. This guy still projected like a star and came off as a guy who's like, I'm in it to win it. So that's really good.
Yeah.
One thing I will say, a lot of people, so the more I started, this is something we hadn't really talked about too much, but I started to reflect on it this past week. And here's a reason that it makes sense why they went with Callum here. I know that there's some fans who are ecstatic. They're like, kiss the ring. It's his time, blah, blah, blah. And they're so happy. And then there's other, like, either outsiders who don't watch actively or people that do, and they're butthurt about it. And they're like, it's not fair. He's not ready. He's not that good, blah, 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 blah. Another white guy that we have to endure. You know, what about the domestics? You know, all that shit. But this is what it really comes down to, Jeremy. We've got the rest half of the year coming up, right? Mm-hmm. And when you and I and Chris were doing the breakdown of like, all right, New Japan Cup time, who can actually win this? Number one, like, who could potentially headline a Sumo Hall show with Tsuji? And then beyond that, who could even potentially beat him for the title? And when we were going through all the names, the only names that even kind of made sense to even stand a chance to beat him were either ex-champions like Tsuji or Zach, or, you know, the one thing that we said was like, well, you always know there's Callum. You never know. They might, you know, break glass and do Callum. Mm-hmm. But what that really spoke to me as I've reflected on it is like, as much talent as there is with guys like Oleg and Shota and Yuya and Oiwa and, you know, what have you, they don't have guys that can headline in the company right now. So because you don't have, and I know that there are people who are pissed because they're like, I wanted Tsuji to go past V1. I wanted him to have a lengthy run, but we would have gotten to a point here very quickly where he doesn't have credible challengers, not in the sense of kayfabe, but in the sense of, can they put asses in seats in a building? They don't have the capacity to do that unless they were going to have him go on a run where he just fights all the old champions again. Right.
And then you burn out opponents. It's like, clearly he's going to win the belt again. So why not save that Zach match, save that Goto match for the second title reign?
Yeah, I think putting the title on Callum gives every one of those domestic guys a new, and we've said this before, but like a new top foreign heel that can fill the same role as like Kenny, AJ, Devitt, you know, Jay White, etc. But it also creates a new star so that when he comes off the belt, and he will probably pretty soon, you have two top guys that the rest of the roster can work with and then start getting made. And right now, just today, your big four basically, and they're probably not even booking them like this, but like the big guys you have essentially are going to be Callum, Goto, Zach, and Tsuji. And then you have a bunch of other surrounding players who are gearing up to shift into those spots. But up until this moment, you really just had Tsuji and the old champions. You had nobody else. Callum moving in there strategically was a necessity that the company absolutely needed. And it is a huge gamble, but they needed to put somebody, especially a heel, with no Evil and no David Finlay into a top spot that they can work with the rest of the generation of guys. And without this win, they don't have that. So it's imperative that they did this.
Yeah, I think it's a great move in establishing a young guy. And we all talk about push young guys, like let's create a star. And that's what they did here. And like Callum, I feel like he's shown like he has the chops. I mean, this guy, you look at when he first came in, super skinny young kid from the UK scene. You look at the amount of muscle he's bulked up, like the look has improved tenfold. This guy is confident. I remember times where like he's doing guest commentary and like he's talking. I'm just like, this guy can't talk. Like, what is he? Like, what's he doing out here? And, like, he completely has revamped the character. He can cut promos. He's got the catchphrases. He's got the look. He's got the great gear. He's got the wrestling. Like, he has really put it all together. And I think he's a guy that you can gamble on, and especially only being 23 years old. Like, this guy's going to get better as long as he continues to work in New Japan. And he's, that they locked him up on a multi-year deal. So it's a guy that you truly can invest in, because I feel like they are gun shy to invest in people because they don't know if they're going to get swooped up by AEW or WWE. And here's a guy where, all right, we know we have him for 2 to 3 years.
3 years.
Yeah, 3 years. We can build around him. He's our guy for the next 3 years. We can elevate him to that Kenny Omega, Jay White, AJ Styles type of level and really make him that top foreign heel. And we just know that each year he's just going to continue to get better.
For anybody that's critical of this decision, let's just think out loud about what the alternatives would have been. Had it been like Goto or Zach, then you're going back to the well with old champions. If they win the belt, now you're kind of back to where we were last year, wash, rinse, and repeat. And if they lose, now there are less credible challengers for Tsuji, and the main event scene is becoming diminished at that point. Alternatively, any of the other top guys like Oleg Boltin, Yuya Uemura, Shota Umino, Ren Narita, it doesn't matter who it was. If any of those guys had gotten through and been put in this spot, sure, you could make the argument that, yeah, maybe they should beat Tsuji, but I think 90% of people didn't think they were going to beat Tsuji. So now you're just setting them all up into a position where it's like they're baby faces going up against a generational guy that they can't beat, and now they're worse off for it. And if they had one, none of them would have been heated up enough in a short-term amount in the booking of that tournament to credibly decrown this guy and be the champion. Whereas Callum Newman, the only like top foreigner who kind of fits this mold of what they look for in these guys in this generation. Like you said, he's signed up for 3 years. He's 23 years old. And he's a heel, and they don't have a heel foil. I think that him ticking all of those boxes means he needed to be the guy, regardless of whether you're a fan of him or not, just from business. Just think about it from a business perspective. To rebuild the scene, you can't just build it all around one guy by himself. Yeah, there is going to be a central figure who's an ace, and I think that will be Tsuji for now, but he can't do it just working on his own. That's why they had him working Jake Lee earlier in the year. Like, they need a top heel to work with the rest of the generation, and that's what Callum has to be at this point.
Yeah, and it kind of reminds me, you talk about, Tanahashi Ace of the Universe, and as Tanahashi's coming up, and like, it's like he realizes, like, hey, like, I need a top foil. Like, I need to make Okada. I need to, do the Rainmaker shock, so I have somebody to draw money with and create this big feud and rivalry and have this guy be the next top heel. And so I feel like it's almost a very similar move here, where it's like, yeah, we need to get Callum over. We need to create some dance partners for Tsuji. And now you can build this as a long-standing rivalry. And it's like, all right, these are the two top guys. And just like with Tanahashi Okada, you can keep coming back to that. And who knows, for years and years, when these guys are in G1 blocks, go, oh, yeah, remember when Callum, beat this guy for the belt? And it's going to build this lore and history between these guys to where it's like, yeah, these are the two top figureheads. And you kind of create this rivalry.
Now, I'm pretty sure that we're going to turn around and Newman's either going to drop the belt in June or October, one or the other, most likely. Mm-hmm. And people will be like, oh, that's classic Gato booking. Yeah, it kind of is, but this was just so needed from like where we're at in terms of the overarching hierarchy of the company, they needed to crown a guy like this, and it needed to be someone who fits the mold and archetype of what he is. And he's the only person they could have done this with right now, honestly.
Yeah.
Logically.
Yeah. So post match, you have all of UE coming in the ring. They're all celebrating. And then there was a post match attack, and a masked man comes out and attacks Tsuji as he's walking to the back, and it ends up being Gabe Kidd. He rips the jacket off, has the AEW logo on it, and he drags Tsuji to the back. And there's, a cell phone footage of him beating up Tsuji, holding the belt up and sticking his
he continued to beat on him. He made one of the Young Lions take the cell phone footage, but he cut a promo basically saying like, fuck this company. I don't care. Everyone who's critical of me, they weren't critical of Will. They weren't critical of Hiromu. They weren't critical of Evil, but only me. But of course, it's something he brought on himself with all the shit he talked over the past couple of years. Yeah. But then basically said like, you guys killed my drive for wrestling last year, and now I've refound my drive, and this title's a global title. I'm going to take this belt, and I'm going to keep it away from Japan as long as I possibly can.
Yeah. So yeah, you had that angle, and then with that post-match beatdown, Shingo did come out to help Tsuji, but Gabe knocked him down. But just luckily, Shingo just laid out there long enough to where he came into the ring, and Newman was kind of like get out my ring, and he slid out, and he came back and grabbed the mic, and they had their back and forth, and essentially, Shingo lays a challenge out for him for the title.
That logic didn't make sense, because it's like, you came out to save your boy, you got laid out, and then instead of going back and being like, oh, wait, what's happening? Let me go help him. He's like, oh, he started looking around. He's like, oh, we got a new world champion, huh? Like, I don't know. The logic of that just didn't, it's kind of weird, but yeah, Shingo, I think Shingo makes sense as a challenger for Callum, and I think it made sense that when I talked about this last week, I said, if you remember, Okada lost at this date to Naito a decade ago, literally. And then the next month it was stablemate Ishii challenging for the title, losing. And then, you kind of turn back around, and by Dominion, Naito's dropping the title. So it makes total sense to me that like Tsuji is in the Ishii role here, and he's going to be the guy. Obviously he's a little more credible because he's held the belt.
You mean Shingo?
I'm sorry, Shingo. But yeah, he's the next challenger. He wrestled Callum just one time a couple years, like in the 2024 G1, and he actually lost that match.
Yeah.
Which that's a match that you and I were like, hey, this is pretty great. And a lot of people are like, fuck that match. It sucked.
Yeah. Which, I think the match now will even be as a main event for a title. Newman's improved so much. Shingo. I think it's going to be a really great main event. We did have lots of questions here. I think I'm going to try and cherry pick. If we've already answered it, I'm going to kind of skip over it just for the sake of time so we can get everything else we got to talk about here. We did have a question from Boston Crab Rangoon. Says, does it feel like Gabe Kidd wants to take on the role of Invader since they fail to utilize that angle on Takeshita?
I don't know. He basically said that. I don't know if it has anything to do with Takeshita, but yeah, essentially he's working as an outside Invader, which is fine.
Yeah. That's the only thing he can do. Like the whole,
you have to,
right? The whole Gabe is, Shinihan. That can't work. Death Triangle 720 says, do you think New Japan won't make the same mistake to have Tsuji win the world title so soon? What I mean is the classic loses it in his first defense, then 2 months passes and wins the title back.
I think it would be totally fine if he does that. The biggest thing here is it gives him an opportunity to probably drop the white belt. I do think it would be hard for him to get back in title contention by Dominion, figuring the fact that he also has the white belt.
Yeah.
I laid out some scenarios last week. I think that he comes back by King of Pro Wrestling and wins the belt there to go into the Tokyo Dome. So I think he's going to beat Callum. If Callum is still champion, I think he might be. I think he beats Callum in the G1 to open up a rematch in October and regain the title.
Yeah. Definitely something also asked thoughts on a potential Tsuji's character change after losing the IWGP title.
I don't know. I don't know what kind of changes he's going to make, but he's a pretty fully formed character. I don't know that he needs to make any changes.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is perfectly fine for him to lose the belt without having to have a crisis of character and change. I think it's just a new challenge for him. Like, all right, I had it, and I was only V1. Now I need to try and get it again and try to have a longer battle reign. Siamese Twin Cobra says, I feel like this AEW relationship, along with booking reeks of WWE part-timer syndrome, think this will end anytime soon. I don't think it deserves New Japan in the least. Hearing Taichi's promo backstage causing me to wonder how often even the talent feels this way.
Well, yeah, there's definitely sore feelings backstage. We've already alluded to how that is similar to what WWE was like back in the day and even to this day. But it is a business partnership. They are working. There's money to be made. And, you know, we've always talked about how there's still a payoff to the Gabe and Tsuji story that hasn't really been fulfilled. So I think it makes sense, especially Tsuji. This man's getting what he asked for. He said, I want to take on invaders for the white belt. Well, guess what? You got a white man as an invader coming to, you know, take your shit.
Yeah. Rainbow and Sandpig says, do you think the choice to put the title on Newman has been a long-held plan or something that came around relatively recently? His regression in terms of look, moveset, and confidence is very noticeable within the last few months.
I can't speculate too much on that, but I will say I don't think this would be happening if like David Finlay and Evil hadn't left the company when they did.
Yeah, I mean, them leaving definitely opened the door for him. But I think even if they didn't leave, I think he eventually would have gotten the path. But especially with them leaving, that helps a lot. Ramos also asked, what do you feel about the intertwining of storylines of AEW during Sakura Genesis? The crossover stuff with Gabe and Ospreay definitely seemed different than prior collaborations in that there seemed to be a level of narrative cohesion that wasn't there before.
Somewhat. Maybe there's going to be some crossover. I don't care about watching AEW too much. I mean, I enjoy it for when I do, but I don't need these stories to carry over to their TV. I just need these stories to exist in our bubble and for them to matter. And that seems to be what's happening.
Yeah. And I mean, I like what is that there does seem to be more synergy, and it seems like there will be more of a AEW versus New Japan build for Forbidden Door, which I think is intriguing. So I like what's happening so far here. Stale Burger Bun, how much AEW do I need to watch to understand New Japan storylines?
I think he's being facetious.
Yeah. Naviv says, this current lineup of United Empire, how does it rank for you, and are there any changes you would make in its hierarchy?
I'm sure that deserves a thoughtful answer. I don't know that I want to delve into the lore of Yui at this point.
All right, yeah, we can pin that for later. MJ says, Gabe or Tsuji, does Drilla have a big role to play?
I don't think so right now, personally. Maybe in the future, but not right now, not this second.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like there's got to be some kind of, you know, Drilla decided to stay. He was a war dog, and
I think he means in terms of like for this title picture.
Yeah.
And maybe. I think with the hierarchy with Unbound Company and where they're sitting, I don't think so.
Yeah.
That's just me personally.
Yeah, I mean, unless you go if you want the belt off of Tsuji so he can do something else, and then Gabe wins it, and then you have Drilla beat Gabe or something like that.
A white man being a white man for the title? Come on, bro.
Ginger and Fringer, do you think the belt looks good on Newman or not? It's been one of the biggest discourses I've seen on Twitter, with majority of people saying he looks like a total geek, which I disagree with, but I was wondering what your guys' opinion was.
I could see aesthetically why some people might feel that way, but I think a lot of that criticism is coming from those individuals who honestly are probably not watching the product.
Yeah, I mean, I think he looks great as a champion. All right, let's jump into the post-show press conference and some of the announcements that came out of that.
There wasn't much here. Really, it was just Newman basically saying that he's going to do things his own way. He's going to continue to piss people off. Shingo's a guy he used to look up to. He no longer does. He doesn't try to emulate him. He's looking to basically eradicate him, and kind of touched on the tensions between him and Will, and how this is his group, and him and Will, like they shared a beer after the show and they've kind of worked it out. But you can see there's some simmering tensions there.
Yeah, and Will also did ask for them to help against the Death Riders. Yeah,
we forgot to mention in the post match, and that was like really strange, like kind of awkward. He's like, I hate to do this while you're having your celebration, but I got some business over there. You think you guys could help me? And everyone's like, bro, like,
Nah, we got these road tours to go to, bro. We can't fly to America.
I know that we always joke about WWE having the like, can they coexist, and tag teams break up stories and blah 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 blah. But if you think about it, like 3 of their best stories of all time are like Bret Owen, Bruno and Larry, and Hogan Savage, and those are all stories that involve like betrayals, turns, friends, long simmering feuds that like were built out. And this Ospreay and Newman thing kind of it has similar vibes, especially to Bret Owen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that leads into the Wrestling Dontaku tour announcement. So Road to Wrestling Dontaku, Cork and Hall is going to be April 19th, April 20th. On the 19th, we're going to see 2 preview matches for the junior tag team title match. So Taiji Ishimori is going to team with Yuto Ice to face Robbie Eagles and Oiwa. And then Robbie X and Oscar will take on Kosei Fujita and Hartley Jackson. Then on April 20th, we'll have the number 1 contender tag team match. Bishamon will take on Hanare and Great Okan. And there'll also be a preview kind of for the world title match as Daiki Nagai will take on Callum Newman and Shingo Takagi will take on Zane J. Then there's going to be the Wrestling Red Zone in Hiroshima on April 25th, Hiroshima Sun Plaza. The Knockout Brothers will defend against the winners of Bishamon and United Empire. And the Ichiban Sweet Boys will defend against Robbie X and Taiji Ishimori. Then we'll have Hisan Nukuni on April 29th. Saga Arena, Doki defends against Tiger Mask. And Bolton, Aaron Wolf, and Mystico will take on Ren Narita, Don Fale, and Dick Togo. And then Wrestling Dontaku, May 3rd, May 4th, Fukuoka International Center. May 3rd, we got Tsuji defending the global title against Gabe Kidd. Narita defending the Never title against Bolton Oleg. Aaron Wolf taking on Don Fale, Takeshita, and Umino against Chase Owens and Yujiro. Then night 2, May 4th, Callum Newman defends against Shingo Takagi. Bishamon and Bolton defend against Ospreay, Hanare, and Okan. Takeshita defends the TV title against Chase Owens. And Desperado and Mystico take on Ichiban Sweet Boys.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. We're going to be doing reviews here in the upcoming weeks. There won't be any action this coming week, but by the time we're recording next week, we'll probably be previewing the first couple road twos leading into Wrestling Red Zone in Hiroshima. So a lot of new directions, a lot of new feuds, things to build on, and we'll talk a bit more about that. New Japan also revealed their schedule for the G1 Climax. In addition to the July 11th opening day in America, they've also announced all the other days. It's a pretty lengthy list. We could go through the whole thing, but they're going to close out the final 2 nights in Ryogoku Sumo Hall, and the day 17 is also in Cork and Hall. So we're looking at 18 nights of action here, pretty lengthy tour. I did see that the tickets for the Hoffman Estate show is a little over 2K. They're set up for like over 5K, so they still got a ways to go, but it's a pretty healthy number if you don't, this early on.
Yeah.
They also revealed the new, the logo for the G1 this year, which I don't know. I don't love it, but some people seem to like it.
I think it's cool.
In the news, Will Ospreay was interviewed by Tokyo Sports this past week and basically said that he is not going to be working Dominion due to his upcoming wedding ceremony with Alex Windsor. I had previously heard that the plan was for him to work Dominion, so I'm a little surprised. I don't know if that's a recent development or if that's always been the case, but he is obviously working Dontaku, and he's saying he plans to work further dates for New Japan this year. Who knows if that remains to be seen, but it's more active than I thought. He also was asked about participation in the G1. I know there's been speculation about AEW involvement because of their promotion of the US Chicago show. He basically said, like, getting 6 months or 6 weeks off from Tony Khan to do a G1 is going to be very difficult. I personally don't ever see him doing another one unless he leaves the company, but also talked about wanting to win the V4 because of guys like Omega and AJ Styles having held that belt before. March 31st, it was announced that New Japan is transferring 100% of their ownership stakes back to Bushiroad. Like a year ago, they transferred everything from Bushiroad to New Japan. Now it's going back to the parent company.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that has something to do with the fact that they're doing good business and it looks good as a line item that way. I don't know. Remains to be seen, but yeah, they're two separate entities owned by the same company once again, officially. Some pretty cool interviews on NJPW1972.com this past week. The Italian and Jay were interviewed. That's Francesco Akira and Jay. And then Yota Tsuji had an interesting interview leading up to his title match. We've talked about it a couple times. The one kind of quasi New Japan show coming up this week, MLW Fantastica Mania, is happening on this Sunday, the 12th, but literally there's been no card announced. It's supposed to be a CMLL show. There's no CMLL talent announced. So I don't know, bro. You guys got 6 days. We don't even know if this shit's going to make air. Like,
bro, it's probably, if it does, it's probably going to air like in December or something.
April 17th for WrestleMania weekend. It was announced that at Stardom's American Dream Show, Saya Ida will take on Alex Windsor for the Strong Women's title. They also announced for the Bloodsport show the same day that Josh Barnett and Yuji Nagata will fight one another. It's a rematch from the January 4th Tokyo Dome IWGP title match. So May 12th, there was an announcement for the United Japan Pro Wrestling, which I thought was never happening again.
Yeah, I thought that was done.
It is. Face the Next event is taking place on May 12th from Shinjuku Face. It's going to highlight young talent across New Japan, Big Japan, Noah, DDT, Dragon Gate, Kyosho Pro, Freedoms, and Gambari Pro. You notice there's no All Japan there. So I think this is a way that they figured we can all work together without having to sacrifice stars and things like that. They're like, we'll focus on the young guys, you know. There's no, you know, so one thing that I did want to ask you about, maybe we'll punt that till next week. I do at some point, I want to get your opinion on these names that Voices of Wrestling and the talent reports of guys that are being looked at by New Japan, but we probably don't have time this week, but maybe next week when we have some time, I'd like to get your takes and opinions on like what's happening with that landscape. But that's really going to do it for the news this week. Do you want to go into the off-topic questions?
Now let's go ahead and wrap it up. I think we'll have some more time next week to answer some of those.
We definitely will, because there's no shows to review.
Yeah. So got some previous. Yeah. So we'll definitely have some time for that next week. Well, that's going to wrap the show up for this week. So next week we'll be back to discuss Road Wrestling Dantaku, Death Pain Invitational, and maybe Fantastica Mania USA. Remember, if you want to watch our show live or listen without ads, sign up at patreon.com/KIStrongstyle. You can also make a donation by visiting socialsuplex.com/donate and click on the donate button under the Keeping Strong Style logo. Make sure you connect with us on social media on X and Blue Sky. Follow us at KI Strong Style, at Socialsuplex, at Jeremy L. Donovan, at YB_Josh and Liger. On Facebook, follow us at facebook.com/Socialsuplex and the Wrestling Squared Circle Facebook group. On Reddit, I'm the Pro Black Guy, just Keeping Strong Style. On YouTube, we're at Socialsuplex. Join our Socialsuplex Discord server and connect with us and other wrestling fans. You can email me, Jeremy at socialsuplex.com, and check out all the other shows that we have here on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. One Nation Radio with Fresh Out and James Boyd, All Things Elite with Floyd and Austin, Imps, AEW Adventure, Wrestling Art with Chris Things, AEW Match Guy with Sam Brown, Tone Talk with Ali and Leah, and the Trish and Sarah Wrestling Podcast, and Joshing Around with Tim and Eric. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a rating and review, and we will catch you next week on Keeping a Strong Style, the ace of podcasts.
Ichiban.
Thank you for listening to Keepin' It Strong Style. We'll see you next time.